Am I the asshole for refusing to let my brother bring his girlfriend to Thanksgiving after she disrespected my wife? I am married to Lily. My brother, Josh, recently started dating Lindsay. While Lindsay has been polite at family events, Lily feels that she has made some passive-aggressive comments toward her. For instance, at a recent barbecue, Lindsay commented that it was selfish of us not to plan on having kids anytime soon. Lily felt uncomfortable, but I didn't address it at the time. Another time, during a family dinner, Lindsay said, "I'm surprised you two are so happy without kids. You must be really good at being selfish." This deeply hurt Lily and made her feel judged for our life choices. The most recent incident happened at a birthday party, where Lindsay made a remark about Lily's career. She said, "It's cute that you're working part-time with no kids while Josh and I are really focusing on our careers." Lily was annoyed but chose not to respond to avoid creating drama. This year, Thanksgiving is at our house. When Josh asked if he could bring Lindsay, I told him I'd prefer if she didn't come. I explained that some of her past comments had made Lily feel disrespected, and I didn't want those issues ruining the holiday atmosphere. Josh was upset and accused me of being petty. He argued that I was overreacting and said Lindsay was just being honest. Despite this, I stood my ground. Now, Josh says he won't attend Thanksgiving if Lindsay isn't invited, and my parents are caught in the middle. My mom feels I'm being too harsh, but I believe I'm simply standing up for my wife. So, am I the asshole for refusing to let my brother bring his girlfriend to Thanksgiving? Am I the asshole for yelling at my sister for putting her phone on Do Not Disturb and leaving her first grader at school without picking him up? Today at 4 p.m., I received a call from my nephew's elementary school. He's 7 years old and in first grade. The school informed me that he had been left at school for about 40 minutes after dismissal. The office had tried reaching his parents, my sister and her husband, without success. They asked if I could get in touch with them. I tried calling both of them, but their phones were on Do Not Disturb. The calls would ring once and then go straight to voicemail, which struck me as odd, since their phones usually ring a few times before going to voicemail. With no one answering, I started getting concerned and decided to go pick up my nephew myself. While I was on my way to the school, I kept trying to reach my sister. Finally, about 90 minutes after the school first tried to contact her, she called me back. She explained that she and her husband had been napping and hadn't heard the phone. I was furious. I felt it was incredibly irresponsible to leave their child stranded at school while silencing their phones, especially as parents of a young child and a toddler. She told me that her husband had arranged for his grandparents to pick up my nephew, but there was a miscommunication. I told her that even if that was the plan, she should never have had her phone on Do Not Disturb. Emergencies like this can happen, and she should have been reachable. Her response shocked me. She said that she likes having her phone on Do Not Disturb during naps, and if I was going to react this way, she would remove me from my nephew's emergency contact list. She also pointed out that I was the last person on the list anyway, with the grandparents listed first. She then accused me of overreacting, saying that normal people wouldn't get angry over something like this. She even mentioned that she had made a lot of new friends this year and now understood how normal people act. I found that insulting because I was the only one responsible enough to answer the school's call and ensure her child's safety. She continued to justify her actions, saying it's normal for people not to answer their phones if they're busy, at work, or in meetings. She insisted that having her phone on Do Not Disturb was necessary because she naps with her toddler and needs complete silence. By the end of the conversation, she tried to make me feel guilty, saying that while I had a right to be concerned, I had no right to be angry or yell at her. She then added that she doesn't like spending time with family because there's always an argument when she talks to us. This left me completely baffled. Instead of showing any gratitude for my help, she threw backhanded insults at me, even though I was the one who made sure her child was safe. Her reaction made me question whether I was wrong to be upset, but I still feel her behavior was irresponsible and ungrateful. So, am I the asshole for yelling at my sister over this? Am I the asshole for refusing to make Starbucks drinks for my family on Thanksgiving? I, 28F, worked at Starbucks for a little over 2 years, and since then, My family has loved asking me to recreate their favorite drinks at home. I don't mind doing it once in a while, but it's not exactly my favorite thing, especially since I don't have all the equipment or supplies that Starbucks has. This Thanksgiving, my mom hosted dinner and invited a bunch of extended family. After we finished eating, she casually announced, "Okay, everyone, my name will be making Starbucks drinks for dessert." I was totally blindsided. Apparently, she had bought a bunch of syrups, whipped cream, and even a little espresso machine just for this. When I said I didn't really feel like making drinks for 15 plus people, my mom got super annoyed and said, "It's not that hard for you. You used to do this all the time at work." A few of my cousins started chiming in too, saying it would be fun and that they'd help. But I didn't come to Thanksgiving to play barista for the whole family, so I stood my ground. Now my mom is upset, saying I embarrassed her after she went out of her way to buy all the supplies. Some of my family thinks I was being selfish and that it wouldn't have taken that long. But I just wanted to enjoy the holiday, not work for it. So, am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for not being excited for my sister's pregnancy and telling her I'll be in Japan at the due date? I'm not sure if I'm the asshole, as I've asked a few friends and they seem pretty evenly split on whether or not I am. Some background: I, 27F, have a sister, Kara, 28F, who is separated from her husband Derek, 30M, after almost 3 years of marriage. Kara has been living with her boyfriend, Dean, 38M, for about 6 months now, and they've been dating for 8 months. Derek was a terrible husband, and honestly, a lot of the red flags I saw in him I now see in Dean. Kara tends to be very gullible and naive, and I don't think she sees it, but I do. To the point where I can't stand to be around Dean because he reminds me so much of Derek. Kara has 2 kids, Jake, 5M, and Naomi, 3F. And she's had incredibly difficult pregnancies, especially with Jake, where we were told there was a high chance she might not survive his delivery. Now, to the issue. Yesterday, Kara told me she was pregnant, and she's due in early May. She was obviously excited about it, but where I might be the asshole is that, instead of being happy for her like she expected, I told her I couldn't be. I explained that I wasn't excited due to her health issues, and because I don't know Dean well enough to be excited for her. The few times I've been around him, I didn't like how he treated my nephew and niece, and he reminds me too much of Derek for me to ever like him. Kara got upset and said I was just upset because this would mean I'd have to cancel my plans to spend 3 months, April, June, in Japan before I start grad school, so I could help her. I work from home and did help my other sister, 25F, when she had her baby, spending a month with her before and after the birth. I told Kara that my plans to go to Japan were set, and I wouldn't be changing them. I'd still be going, and nothing was going to change. She called me an asshole for not being excited for her and for choosing Japan over helping her with the baby, like I had for our other sister. Am I the asshole? I feel like I could be, especially since Kara wants so badly for me to be happy for her, and I could consider shortening my trip to help her out a little more. Am I the asshole for not giving my mom her monthly money so I could have extra spending money on my vacation? For context, I, 26F, give my mom a set amount of money every month. She's retired and gets a pension, but she says it's not enough to cover her expenses. She insists that it's my responsibility as her daughter to help her out financially. My sister and her husband give my mom more money than I do, and they have a baby, which makes me feel even guiltier. They often remind me that they manage to give more, even with their extra responsibilities. This month, I decided not to give my mom her usual amount because I planned a 10-day vacation with my fiancé to another city. I could have still gone on the trip while giving her the money, but I wanted to have more spending money to fully enjoy my time away. Now my mom is upset, and her attitude toward me has shifted. This isn't the first time she's been cold or distant when I couldn't or didn't give her money. Even though I know I could technically afford both, I feel guilty for choosing to prioritize myself and my vacation instead. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for skipping my monthly contribution to my mom so I could have more financial freedom on my trip? Edit 1. I did tell her I wouldn't be able to send her money this month, which is why she said that no matter what happens, it's my responsibility to help her financially. I didn't give her a month's notice, just some days before I went on vacation. Edit 2. Some of you have been asking about her pension. It's 1,400 US dollars, but we live in Colombia, so life here is cheaper than in the US. Just to give some perspective. Edit 3. For everyone saying I shouldn't be giving her any money and that it's not my responsibility, I've tried to tell her I'll help when I can. But this only leads to her growing resentment toward me and turning cold. I feel like I have no other option because if I don't send anything, my family says I'm an asshole. If I send only when I can, they also get angry because my sister helps monthly. The only way to keep them happy is to send her money each month. I do feel used, and honestly, I only send it because I feel it's the only way to keep peace in the family and avoid drama. Edit 4. I give her 250 US dollars monthly. My sister gives her twice that amount and also covers the cost of the electricity bill. My mom lives alone in a big apartment she owns, so it's a bit more expensive than a regular apartment. Am I the asshole for not forgiving my sister-in-law when she didn't apologize for something she did? Context: I, 31F, moved to my husband's, 31M, country 4 years ago. None of my family lives here, and his family is nearby. I have a good relationship with my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and my relationship with my husband's siblings, SIL 29F and BIL 25M, is generally good. A few weeks ago, it was my 31st birthday. Last year, my BIL used my birthday gathering to plan his own birthday party. To avoid a repeat, I decided not to make a big deal out of this year's celebration. I didn't want to spend money on a party, and I didn't want the attention to be diverted again. We decided to celebrate at my in-laws' house because they have more space. We invited my husband's siblings and their partners. They arrived late, around 4:30 p.m., which is typical for this family and not a big deal. Since I live in a foreign country, English isn't the primary language. I know the language but find it hard to keep up with many fast conversations at once. Everyone spoke in the local language throughout the evening, which made me feel disconnected and overstimulated. Eventually, I gave up trying to keep up and started scrolling on my phone. The problem began when my SIL asked if she could show her vacation pictures to everyone. In my husband's family, it's common to share vacation photos at gatherings, but the way SIL asked caught me off guard. She asked for my permission in front of everyone, which made me feel obligated to say yes. I found it rude to show vacation pictures at someone else's birthday celebration. I briefly excused myself to get coffee. When I returned, BIL and his girlfriend asked to see our wedding photos, which they hadn't yet seen. Sale seemed disappointed, and she and ML went to the kitchen, where they had a loud conversation that we could all hear from the living room. After viewing the wedding photos, we had dinner, and SIL again pushed for us to look at her vacation pictures. She and her husband spent about an hour going through the pictures, explaining each one in detail. Again, it was in the local language and I struggled to follow. My husband noticed and told me to put my phone away, which frustrated me further. The last picture they showed was a sonogram, and they announced their pregnancy. They had many chances to announce this before or after that day, but they chose that moment. I faked a smile, congratulated them, and excused myself to the bathroom. My husband and I left soon after, and he didn't understand why I was upset. In his culture, it's normal to announce major life milestones at other celebrations, but in my culture, it's not. We argued about it for the rest of the night and the next day. SIL's response. An hour later, SIL sent me a text justifying their timing and laughing it off. I responded, saying I was happy for them but hurt by the way they announced it. She later responded, claiming they were hurt by my reaction and that my response had cast a dark shadow over their happiness. She didn't apologize but continued to justify her actions. So, Reddit AITA for not simply forgiving her and moving on? Edit 1. Just to clarify, I do speak the local language. Not fluently, but I understand significantly more than I can speak. I can follow a conversation and hold one, but what I can't do is follow 4 simultaneous conversations being held all at once, with people shouting across the room towards each other. This is a very common practice for birthdays in this country, the Netherlands. It's called the Ring of Doom. It's the standard layout for birthdays here, and people gravitate toward it. I think it would be difficult to keep up even in my native language, let alone a foreign one. Edit 2. Some people seem to think I expect a huge, milestone-like celebration for my non-milestone birthday. That's not the case. I'm honestly more than happy not to celebrate at all. I don't need presents, don't like attention, and don't want the work of organizing events. Birthdays are important to my husband and his family, milestone birthday or otherwise. Every year I am asked for birthday plans, and every year I put it off as long as possible. After the events of last year, I really put it off until basically the weekend before, then relented and said we could do something low-key at my husband's parents' house. Before anyone says, nobody forced you to do it. Yes, I know. I did it because it's important to my husband and his family. That being said, if I do go ahead and plan something and set time aside for it, it's not meant for someone else to swoop in and use it for their convenience. I don't think that's acceptable. The main issue here is that I communicated clearly to SIL that I was upset by her actions, and instead of acknowledging my feelings, she doubled down, justified everything, and flipped the situation on me, telling me how I upset them by casting a dark cloud over their happy news. Am I the asshole for how I handled an accusation of parking in customer parking as a non-customer? Context. I, 31F, went to a local framing shop today to get a piece of art framed. I've been a regular customer of this shop for years, having spent a lot of money with them over time. I even paint myself and enjoy art, so I frequently get things framed. Today, I bought something for framing, spent about $100, and was recognized by the woman working there who gave me a regular customer discount. The shop wasn't busy at all, and there were several empty parking spaces. After paying, I didn't immediately leave. I saw that I needed a few more steps for my daily step goal, so I walked around the town and grabbed some food before returning to my car. The incident. When I was backing out of the parking spot, a man approached my car. I didn't recognize him. He started accusing me of parking in the customer parking lot when I wasn't a customer. He was very hostile. I told him I was a customer, but he continued to approach me, trying to stop me from leaving. Got uncomfortable and told him to get away from me. He stayed there saying, hold on, which made me even more frustrated. So I told him to get the F away from me and left the parking lot. I noticed there were still several open parking spaces. When I got home, I called the framing shop to explain the situation. The woman on the phone told me that the man was her husband and that he had misunderstood the situation. She said he thought I was a non-customer, but that I had escalated the situation too quickly, implying that he might have been targeted by me because of his race. He's white. My reaction. I told her that her husband didn't even ask if I was a customer. He just immediately started accusing me. I told her I had already explained I was a customer, but he didn't listen. He kept trying to stop me from leaving, which made me feel very uncomfortable. I also mentioned that I felt he might have profiled me because my car is not very nice, but I didn't say that part out loud. I asked for my money back and for my art to be returned. The woman seemed upset and asked me to reconsider. I said I was really upset by how I was treated and needed to think about it. Later, I ran into my mom, and she went to pick up my art and get my money back. When she did, she said the woman seemed flustered and a bit surprised. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for how I handled this situation? Edit. I didn't want to escalate things, but the man was very aggressive and didn't even give me a chance to explain myself. I understand that misunderstandings can happen, but I felt really uncomfortable by his behavior and the way my concerns were dismissed. My regular customer status should have been enough for him to simply ask politely, but instead, he tried to stop me from leaving without listening to me. I wasn't rude to him initially. I just wanted to leave, but the way he acted pushed me to respond in a way that I now feel bad about. However, the response from the woman defending him without listening to me made me feel even worse. Am I the asshole for refusing to return Pokemon cards gifted to me years ago, even though the original owners are begging for them back? Context. About 8 to 10 years ago, I, 18M, was given a collection of Pokemon cards by a family I'll call the Johnsons. At the time, they weren't interested in collecting anymore, and the mom thought I'd enjoy them more, so she gave them to me. They never mentioned that the cards were only temporarily given to me, so I considered them mine and mixed them in with the cards I bought and the ones I inherited from my older brother. The situation now. Recently, I found out that the Johnsons have been trying to reach out for the past 2 years, first casually and now almost pleadingly, asking for the cards back. They even offered to pay me for them. I'm assuming they didn't realize how valuable the cards were when they gave them to me. While I still have all the cards, they're mixed in with mine and my brother's, so separating them would be almost impossible without a significant effort. When I first got these cards, I didn't collect them, I actually played with them. Growing up, they're not in perfect condition anymore, so while some might still have sentimental value, they're definitely not in the kind of condition collectors typically look for. Complications. To make things more complicated, the Johnsons are actually relatives of mine, which adds some pressure because I don't want to cause any tension or bad blood. However, it feels unfair to have to undo years of collecting and preserving something that they willingly gave to me. The cards are now mixed with my own collection, and I've taken care of them for years. I've told them the cards were a gift and that I've kept them in good condition over the years. But they keep pushing, saying it's only fair to return something they regret giving away. Some of my friends think I should just give them back to avoid the hassle, while others believe that since it was a gift, I'm not obligated to return them. So, AITA for refusing to return the cards, even though they've offered to pay? Or should I just give in to keep the peace? Edit. For clarity, I was never told that the cards were on loan or that they expected them back. At the time, it was just a gift. I also don't think the Johnsons realized how much the cards would be worth now. I didn't start collecting seriously until later on, so it wasn't until more recently that I even understood their full value. Also, I understand that they may be feeling regret about giving them away, but I've had them for so long now that it doesn't feel right to just give them back after all this time, especially since they're now part of my personal collection. Am I the asshole for not spending time with my friend after they announced an abroad, unexpected visit? Context: I, 21F, am studying abroad and will be here until I leave in 2.5 weeks. A while back, I had a friend, Nick, 22M, during my freshman year of college. He was very wild and spontaneous, always wanting to go out, party, and flirt with guys. But then he would disappear for days, which was frustrating because we had so much fun when he was around. Later that year, my mental health took a hit, and Nick essentially ghosted me. He moved off my floor, made new friends, and I never heard from him. After dropping out of school and moving back home, I didn't hear anything from him for a long time. About a year ago, he reached out. He had dropped out too, and we talked a couple of times to catch up. He never gave a clear reason for ghosting me back then, but he was across the country, so I didn't push it. We stayed in touch by texting sporadically, with him sending random memes, songs, and reels, and I'd respond when I had the time. He knew I was studying abroad, and a while ago he mentioned wanting to visit, but he never made any concrete plans, so I didn't take him seriously. I told him my parents were visiting, then I had finals and a trip, so I wasn't sure when I'd be free. After I stopped responding for a bit due to being busy, he didn't bring it up again. The situation now. Then last night, he messaged me saying he was already at the airport, boarding a flight to come see me. He didn't have a hotel or a return flight booked, and he asked if it would be okay for him to stay with me for 1 to 2 weeks with no clear end date. Naturally, I said no. I'm furious. We never made concrete plans, and I never gave him a definite yes. I'm also appalled that he thinks he can just fly 4,000 miles, drop back into my life, and expect to stay with me after he ghosted me when I needed him most. I do wonder if I might have led him on by occasionally texting him back, but I still feel this is a huge overstep on his part. Some friends are telling me to just ignore him completely, but I don't want to fully ghost him. I'm open to maybe meeting him for coffee or lunch, but I have finals coming up. I'm spending time with friends, and I don't want to be expected to be his tour guide or host him for an indefinite amount of time. I'm just angry and confused about everything. ITA for refusing to spend time with him or let him stay with me. Am I the asshole for refusing neighbors' gifts? Context: I'm a retired woman living with my adult son. My neighbor, who is also retired, keeps bringing me food. Even though I've repeatedly told her that both my son and I are on special diets, we don't eat pork, and I don't have enough room in my fridge/freezer. I've tried to be polite about it, and I've told her that if she has too many avocados, for example, I'd appreciate a few, but that's it. It's been going on for 2 or 3 years, And while I do appreciate her gesture, it's become a burden. In the past, I felt obligated to return the favor by giving her something I made in exchange for the food items she left me. But those days are over. I've told her several times that the food she brings often ends up being unidentifiable, and I end up throwing it away. I've also told her that both my son and I are on restrictive diets, so I can't accept most of it. Recently, she started leaving food outside my dining room window, which makes me uncomfortable, especially since I've posted a nap time, do not disturb, sign on my door, which she doesn't always respect. Sometimes she even peeks in through the window to see if I'm home. This is starting to get on my nerves, and I resent the constant food donations. My son thinks I should just accept the gifts and throw them away without telling her. But I've been honest with her about why I can't accept the food. Yesterday, she left a package of freshly made food on my windowsill, and after bringing it inside, I bagged it up, wrote a note saying no thank you, and returned it to her front stoop, along with the empty containers from last week. The situation now, I don't think she's lonely. She has a husband, 2 roommates, pets, and family nearby. I'm just at my wit's end and feel like an ungrateful person, even though I've told her repeatedly that I can't accept the food. So, am I the asshole for refusing her gifts and returning them? And will this ever stop? Am I the asshole for being insulted that my fiancé's family is uninviting my son to family events? My fiancé and I have been together for almost 13 years. We have a blended family with 4 kids, 3 are mine, and 1 is his. Our kids grew up together, got along well, and we've both stepped into parental roles for each other's children. Over the years, I've prioritized attending my fiancé's family events. I've even reorganized Christmas and Thanksgiving gatherings to fit their schedule because his family values specific dates, while my family has always been flexible to accommodate everyone. Now, here's where things get complicated. My oldest son, who is now 20, went through a rebellious phase from ages 14 to 17. During that time, he ran away a lot and spread lies about us to gain sympathy and support. He didn't want to live at home and did what he could to make that happen. It was an incredibly hard time for me, and I blamed myself for his behavior. When he turned 18, we started to rebuild our relationship. He apologized for the false things he said, and I apologized for anything I might have done that contributed to his struggles. It was deeply personal and something that my son, my fiancé, and I worked through together. Fast forward to now, more than a year after we reconciled. Whenever we attend my fiancé's family events, they treat my son rudely. It's incredibly awkward. Then, at one event, my fiancé's sister outright told my son he wasn't invited. Since then, he has been excluded from all their gatherings. For me, holidays are about my blended family. My kids, my fiancé, and his daughter. That's my family, and I prioritize us being together. My stance is simple. If any one of us is excluded, we all stay home and celebrate together. But my fiancé's family has a manipulative hold on him. They guilt him into attending their events, and every time he promises we'll spend the holidays together, they manage to pull him away. So, he leaves me and my kids behind to go spend time with his family instead. I'm deeply hurt by this dynamic. I feel like he's choosing his extended family over the one we've built together. I believe we should stand united as a family, especially during the holidays. But I also know his family's manipulation makes him feel torn. Am I the asshole for being upset by this situation and wanting us to prioritize our blended family? Should I just accept that his family excludes my son and continues to split us up during the holidays? Am I the asshole for yelling at a couple because of their kids at the airport? Last year, I, 16M, went backpacking across Europe with my mom, 44, for 3 weeks. It was an amazing trip, but towards the end, we both got sick. I had a minor rash, but my mom got hit much harder with symptoms like headaches, fever, nausea, and inflamed patches on her neck. We were a day away from our return flight, and medical options in Rome weren't great, so we decided she'd see a doctor as soon as we got back. By the time we landed in California after a 16-hour flight, my mom was exhausted, practically a zombie from the trip and her worsening illness. We were in line at customs for American citizens, and right behind us was a couple with 2 kids. around 4 and 7 years old. It was a long line, and we were stuck with them for at least 20 minutes. The kids were wild. They were screaming, running around, bumping into people and stepping over our feet. The parents seemed unbothered, casually chatting with each other in Italian. This was really bothering my mom as the constant noise and chaos made her headache even worse. I'm not the confrontational type, unlike my mom, who would speak up in situations like this. But seeing my mom suffer and not being able to say anything really bothered me. I kept telling myself I'd say something after one more time, but eventually, I reached my breaking point. I turned around, looked them both in the eyes, and said loudly but firmly, "You speak English, right? Keep your kids in line." The mom just stared at me, picked up her kids, and that was the end of it. My mom tried to say something before I spoke up, but didn't stop me. Afterward, she didn't say much either. When I shared this story with my coworkers, my boss said I sounded like a Karen, and that I overreacted. I felt like I held it together well under the circumstances, but now I'm second-guessing myself. A little more context, we later found out my mom had a staph infection and almost went septic, in addition to having multiple pre-existing conditions like cluster headaches, hyperthyroidism, she had her thyroid removed, sleep apnea, brain lesions from microstrokes, and heart problems. I know flying while sick wasn't considerate, but we didn't have the money to stay longer for medical treatment, and we needed to get back to our pets. My mom refused to see a doctor right away, and I wanted her to, but she insisted on waiting until we got home. She's stubborn like that, and once, she almost died from an infection because she didn't want me to miss work. So, am I the asshole for yelling at the couple and their kids at the airport? Am I the asshole for not letting a stranger borrow my address as a family favor? So, my aunt reached out to me on Thanksgiving asking for a favor. To give some background, my family was close with some relatives when I was younger, but I haven't seen most of them in over 10 years, and I don't really keep in touch with them. This aunt will sometimes text or call on holidays, but that's about it. Now, here's what happened. She wants to buy a small restaurant that she's worked at for the past 7 years. The owner keeps going back and forth about selling because the business is still profitable, but he might eventually sell. There's just one cook who's crucial to the restaurant's operation, and he's in the process of getting a marriage green card. However, it's taking a long time, and his driver's license is expiring next month. My aunt lives in Texas, and I'm in Washington. Apparently, the cook paid a broker years ago to help him get a Washington state driver's license since it's easier for non-citizens to obtain one here. Now, my aunt is asking me to help the cook renew his license by letting him borrow my address because a valid Washington address is required for the renewal. The new license would be sent to my address, and I would have to forward it to him at his actual address. I asked my aunt why he couldn't just use the address listed on his current driver's license, and she told me it costs money to change it, a couple $1,000s. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure why she's so invested in helping this cook out, but I'm guessing it's because she wants to make sure he stays on as the cook when she buys out the restaurant, or maybe because the restaurant owner requested it. However, she was pretty vague about why this favor is so important to her. I ended up telling her that I'm not comfortable letting a stranger use my address for his driver's license. I'm pretty sure that's illegal, right? I suggested that the cook should just figure it out on his own, even if it's going to cost him money. I haven't heard back from my aunt since then, and I'm almost certain she's talking behind my back, calling me a cold, heartless person to the rest of the family. Here's the kicker. I haven't spoken to my mom in years because her presence in my life became too toxic and selfish. I mentioned this whole situation to my dad, hoping for some support, but he just brushed it off, saying it's not a big deal and that I should help out since we're family. His tone kind of implied that I'm overreacting. Now I'm second-guessing myself. Am I overreacting here? Is it wrong to not want to help out my aunt? I've been really anxious about this all weekend, overthinking the whole thing. I just need an outside perspective because my family uses "we're family" as an excuse for everything, and my husband is the only one who's told me that my family is not normal. I never talk to friends about family drama, so I'm really lost here. Am I the asshole for not agreeing to this favor and thinking it might be illegal? Should I have been more understanding of my aunt's situation? Or is this actually a big deal? Thanks in advance. Am I the asshole for putting my grandma in a nursing home? Earlier this year, I, 24M, was given the chance to live in my grandmother's 92F house for free. At the time, she wasn't in a condition to live alone anymore, so she moved in with my uncle. Since her house would be empty, I was asked to stay there and take care of it. The plan was for the utilities and other expenses to be covered by her pension, so I wouldn't need to pay anything besides food. However, just a few weeks after moving in, the water was shut off. I had to pay to get it reinstated, and that was just the start of a series of bills I wasn't initially told about. In total, I ended up paying about $500 a month for bills that I didn't expect, which wasn't huge but definitely a deviation from what was originally agreed upon. A few months later, Grandma came back into the picture. She had been staying with my dad and stepmom while she recovered from a fall, but they were retired and had the time to care for her. They sat me down and explained that she would be moving into a nursing home, I'd stay in her house, and I'd also need to contribute toward the cost of the nursing home. The amount they mentioned was $1,200 per month on top of the bills I was already paying. This was all new information to me. Before any of that could happen, Grandma had another fall that left her incapacitated for a few months. She became wheelchair-bound, and the family discussed selling her house to help pay for the nursing home. During this time, she called me, begging me not to let them sell her house. She wanted me to live with her once she was well enough. She assured me that I wouldn't need to do much, just pay the bills I was already paying, help her get out of bed, and assist with cooking/cleaning. She said the nurses would take care of the rest. First, everything seemed fine, but soon, things started to unravel. One day, after I worked a long shift, I decided to sleep in. My grandma lashed out at me for not being up to make her breakfast. The breakfast I had pre-made for her the night before, which she had said was tasty while I was cooking it, she now claimed wasn't fit for a dog. She also complained that the house was filthy, despite me having deep cleaned it only 2 days prior. This pattern of complaints and criticisms continued daily. I was also tasked with cleaning bodily fluids, changing diapers, and giving her baths. No outside help ever came as promised. On top of that, she started throwing tantrums like a child. This emotional abuse became too much to handle. I told my family I couldn't live with it anymore, and that I needed to arrange for her to be placed in a nursing home where professionals could take care of her. Now, I feel guilty for not being able to just take it and be there for her. Part of me feels like I should have stuck it out, but another part of me feels like I was pushed into a situation no one else wanted. So, am I the asshole for putting her in a nursing home instead of continuing to care for her myself? TLDR. I was asked to stay in my grandma's house for free and help take care of her. After several months of emotional abuse and being expected to do more than I could handle, I arranged for her to go into a nursing home. Now I feel guilty, but also like no one else wanted to step up. Am I wrong for doing this? Am I the asshole for telling so I'm going home during an international trip? I went on an international trip, 20 plus hours away, with my significant other, SO, and their family. Before leaving, I expressed reservations about traveling with their parents. A few days in, I ate something that didn't sit well with me, and when my SO asked their dad for medication, he responded condescendingly, saying we should always carry it ourselves. We had some, but it was back at the hotel. Already feeling unwell, this exchange made me cry. My SO stood up for me, which led to a huge fight with their dad. Eventually, we all apologized, but SO and I still had to go have a talk with him. While the apologies were made, some things their dad said during the conversation left me uneasy. Things their dad said or did. Told us we should learn from his 30-year marriage because statistically ours is destined to fail, 50% divorce rate. Made sexist comments, like saying women are weaker, and joked about finding pretty women, even though it makes his wife uncomfortable. Revealed he had been delaying a doctor-recommended appointment to check for possible cancer so we could all go on this trip, implying this might be our only chance to travel together. This wasn't mentioned until the argument about his behavior. I've noticed him checking out other women during the trip. Said we should just leave if we aren't having a good time. On top of all this, I caught my SO checking out other people during what is supposed to be a trip celebrating our anniversary. This hurt me, And since then, I've been quieter and more withdrawn. I've been spending more time on my phone, but I still respond if someone asks me a question. My so claims I've been rude to them and their parents since the incident. Now, I've told my so that I want to go home, even though we have 2 weeks left on the trip and even though their dad might have cancer. Am I the asshole for deciding I've had enough and wanting to leave early? Am I the asshole for ruining my mom's Thanksgiving? I, 34F, have a difficult relationship with my mom, 54F. She's high-strung, high-maintenance, and neurotic, while I'm the complete opposite. We've always butted heads because of our differing personalities. Leading up to Thanksgiving this year, my sister, 35F, and I repeatedly asked our mom about her plans, but she kept saying she wasn't sure and would get back to us. We asked a few more times, but still no concrete plans were made. At this point, my fiancé, 35M, and I decided to do Thanksgiving at his mom's house instead. We've been together almost 8 years, have 2 kids, and have spent the last 2 Thanksgivings at his mom's because my mom never made any plans. About 4 days before Thanksgiving, my mom finally asked if we had plans. We told her no, and at that point, I had given up hope on a dinner with her. My fiancé likes to cook turkey and offered to help his mom, so everything was set for us to celebrate with his family. The night before Thanksgiving, while I was on break at work, my mom called and asked what we were doing for the holiday. I told her we were going to his mom's house. This set her off completely. She cried, made a scene on FaceTime, and accused us of not loving her and said his mom was more important. She pointed out this would be the 3rd year in a row she was left out. I tried to reassure her, reminding her that we had asked about her plans earlier, but she hung up on me. I spent most of my lunch break trying to comfort her, telling her we loved her just as much and that if she'd made plans sooner, we would have gone to her house. I also told her I'd still visit her with the kids, but we wouldn't be hungry since we'd already eaten. This only upset her more. She told me not to bother coming and that she wasn't doing anything now, so she didn't want us there. Thanksgiving came, and we had a great time at his family's house. I didn't go to my mom's or call her because she had turned off her phone in anger. The next day, I saw that she had posted on Facebook, saying she hoped everyone had a good Thanksgiving and that nobody called or showed up, and that she was hurt. Here's where I might be the asshole. I showed my sister the post, and we both got upset. She was more upset than I was. I then posted a screenshot of my conversation with my mom in the comments, pointing out that my mom had told me not to come and shouldn't be playing the victim when it was really her fault nobody showed up. After seeing that other family members were siding with us, she deleted the post and I haven't heard from her since. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for ruining my mom's Thanksgiving? Am I the asshole for ruining my mom's Thanksgiving? I, 34F, have a difficult relationship with my mom, 54F. She's high-strung, high-maintenance, and neurotic, while I'm the complete opposite. We've always butted heads because of our differing personalities. Leading up to Thanksgiving this year, my sister, 35F, and I repeatedly asked our mom about her plans, but she kept saying she wasn't sure and would get back to us. We asked a few more times, but still no concrete plans were made. At this point, my fiancé, 35M, and I decided to do Thanksgiving at his mom's house instead. We've been together almost 8 years, have 2 kids, and have spent the last 2 Thanksgivings at his mom's because my mom never made any plans. About 4 days before Thanksgiving, my mom finally asked if we had plans. We told her no, and at that point, I had given up hope on a dinner with her. My fiancé likes to cook turkey and offered to help his mom, so everything was set for us to celebrate with his family. The night before Thanksgiving, while I was on break at work, my mom called and asked what we were doing for the holiday. I told her we were going to his mom's house. This set her off completely. She cried, made a scene on FaceTime, and accused us of not loving her and said his mom was more important. She pointed out this would be the 3rd year in a row she was left out. I tried to reassure her, reminding her that we had asked about her plans earlier, but she hung up on me. I spent most of my lunch break trying to comfort her, telling her we loved her just as much and that if she'd made plans sooner, we would have gone to her house. I also told her I'd still visit her with the kids, but we wouldn't be hungry since we'd already eaten. This only upset her more. She told me not to bother coming and that she wasn't doing anything now, so she didn't want us there. Thanksgiving came, and we had a great time at his family's house. I didn't go to my mom's or call her because she had turned off her phone in anger. The next day, I saw that she had posted on Facebook, saying she hoped everyone had a good Thanksgiving and that nobody called or showed up, and that she was hurt. Here's where I might be the asshole. I showed my sister the post, and we both got upset. She was more upset than I was. I then posted a screenshot of my conversation with my mom in the comments, pointing out that my mom had told me not to come and shouldn't be playing the victim when it was really her fault nobody showed up. After seeing that other family members were siding with us, she deleted the post and I haven't heard from her since. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for ruining my mom's Thanksgiving? Am I the asshole for not letting my wife invite her friends to my shared beach house? After many years of work and significant financial investment, my siblings and I built the beach house of our dreams. Ownership is evenly divided among the three of us. While all of us are married, our spouses do not own any percentage of the property. Currently, we're figuring out how scheduling will work, who gets which weekends, when the house will be shared, and so on. My sister has always hosted a 4th of July gathering, a tradition she's continued for years at our parents' vacation house. This year, she's planning to invite her friends to the new beach house for the holiday. I have no issue with this. However, my wife is concerned that my sister will claim every 4th of July weekend going forward. She wants the chance to host her own friends for the holiday at least occasionally. My wife asked if I could reserve the 4th of July for her and her friends this year or next. I told her it would be tricky and that it would honestly be easier for everyone if she chose another weekend in July or August. This upset her. She feels it's unfair for my sister to always have the 4th and said that if that's the case, she'll have to travel to see her friends every year instead of hosting them at the beach house. I suggested a compromise. Since my parents' vacation house, also in the same area, will no longer be used for big family gatherings, we could host her friends there for the 4th. This way, she wouldn't have to travel and she could still host a group. However, she wasn't happy with this suggestion, saying she doesn't want to settle for the house nobody else wants. I suspect my wife feels I wasn't really listening to her concerns and rushed to find a solution instead of fully understanding her frustration. I also think there's underlying resentment about the ownership structure of the beach house. Because I technically own 1/3 of it while she doesn't own any part, she might feel excluded. For example, I could more easily arrange to host my friends at the house than she could, which could make things feel unbalanced in our marriage. So, am I the asshole for not letting my wife invite her friends to the beach house for the 4th of July? Am I the asshole for telling my stepmom about what my brother did? I'm about to turn 16, and I'm not exactly a model student or a perfect person. I don't try hard in school because the material feels too repetitive to me, and I also drink a lot. I sneak vodka into drinks and sometimes even take them to school, drinking about twice a week. My dad married my stepmom about 5 months ago, and she has a 14-year-old son. I've only known him for about 4 months, and I didn't think much of him until recently. I keep my alcohol stash hidden in my room, and no one really bothers me at home. Most of the time, my stepmom and her family are at her mom's house, so it's just me and my dad, who usually sleeps in his office most nights. I started noticing that bottles from my stash were disappearing. This went on for about 3 weeks, and I couldn't figure out who was taking them. Eventually, I found my stepbrother drunk at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. It was clear he had been the one taking my alcohol. I ended up telling my stepmom about it, and she was really mad. My stepbrother was understandably upset with me, but I felt like I had to say something because I didn't want him to end up like me. The thing is, now I feel hypocritical. I drink just as much, if not more, than he does, so I'm not sure if I'm in the right here. I'm worried that either way, my stepmom won't care, or worse, she'll make things worse for both of us. He also told her that I drink a lot and even gets to see me drunk at school, which I thought I was hiding well, but she didn't believe him. So, am I the asshole for telling my stepmom about what my stepbrother did? Should I have kept quiet given my own behavior? Or did I do the right thing? Am I the asshole for refusing to make new plans for straight after New Year? Over Christmas, Both myself and my girlfriend are off work from Christmas Day until January 2nd. I've been pretty burnt out with work and exams, so I was really looking forward to a few days to relax. However, I realized that if I wanted to actually relax, I wouldn't be able to make many plans with my girlfriend, aside from the ones we already had on New Year's Day and seeing her friend and her friend's boyfriend one evening. So, I decided to take the second and third off work for myself. My girlfriend should be back at work by then, so I plan to use those days to relax, catch up on reading, TV shows, and play new video games. I told my girlfriend about these plans and explained why I needed the time off. We had made a few more plans for the holidays, but the 2nd to 6th was meant to be my time to unwind. The next day, she also requested those same days off. I asked her why she wanted to take those days off when I had already planned to relax. She said she thought we could do something together during that time and mentioned that she had leave to use up. I pointed out that we already had plenty of things planned over Christmas, and that's why I specifically wanted those days to relax. She didn't think I'd take the full 4 days to myself. I was surprised and asked why she thought that when I had explicitly told her that was my plan. She said she thought we could go on a day trip one day and go out for food and drinks another day. But I told her I didn't want to make any new plans and needed those days to rest. She got upset, saying I wasn't considering her, but I pointed out that she wasn't considering me. She had taken time off work, knowing I already had plans, and seemed to expect me to cancel them. She denied that was her intention, but I argued that her reaction to me not changing my plans showed otherwise. I told her that if she was taking those days off too, she'd need to make her own plans because I was busy. So, am I the asshole for refusing to make any new plans and sticking to my decision to relax? Am I the asshole for ignoring my autistic sister? I'm 20, and I have 2 sisters, Sue, 14, and Mary, 19. Mary was diagnosed with autism at 3 years old. She is high-functioning but has some social challenges and a lot of quirks. Growing up, my parents worked a lot, and I ended up taking care of my sisters a lot, especially when I was 13. By then, I had essentially become the babysitter for them. Sue was still young, and Mary, though high-functioning, didn't always cooperate. I had to be in charge, but I had little authority, which led to a lot of frustration. I didn't raise a hand to them, but I sometimes raised my voice or took my anger out in other ways, like breaking something outside. When I turned 16, things started to shift. My parents got Mary into therapy, and it seemed to help. However, after that, she started reacting more strongly. If I ever touched her, even by accident, or if I brushed against her, she would freak out, yelling, "Don't touch me, leave me alone," or, "I don't have to listen to you." These outbursts made me feel awful, almost like a predator, and her words still stick with me today. I began to avoid her as much as possible. I couldn't handle the constant tension and the fear of triggering another outburst. I tried talking to my parents about it, and they explained that her therapist had been teaching Mary to be more assertive with her words, rather than throwing tantrums. They reassured me that there was no issue with my behavior and that I just needed to get over it since she was still learning to communicate. I understand that Mary has her challenges, but I also feel like my feelings are being overlooked. I'm terrified of triggering another meltdown, and it's affecting my relationship with her. I've tried to be supportive, but honestly, I'm struggling with how to handle it. So, am I the asshole for wanting to ignore her and avoid contact entirely to prevent triggering another outburst? I get that she's learning and growing, but I'm really struggling with how to deal with this situation. Am I the asshole for giving one niece something I got for free but buying the other something 2 years in a row? About 2 years ago, my mom's friend's daughter gave me a bunch of books she didn't want, including a lot of Harry Potter-related ones. At the time, I wasn't a fan of Harry Potter but decided to keep them just in case. A year ago, my oldest niece, who had just gotten into Harry Potter, turned 8, so I gave her one of the books I had, an informational one that I thought she'd like. This week, my oldest niece turns 9, and I have another Harry Potter book that I think she'd enjoy but I don't need, so I plan to give it to her as a gift. When I mentioned this to my dad, asking where the tape was to wrap it, he said it was unfair for me to give something used to my oldest niece while buying something new for my middle niece, who's also around the same age. For context, I'm 19, disabled, and currently on government funds. I can't work right now, and I've had a tough week because my dog died. Just before I got paid. I used almost all of my money to pay for her cremation, which cost £220. So, I don't have the funds to buy a new gift for my oldest niece right now. If I did buy something, she'd have to wait until after her birthday or even till Christmas since I can't get to her house alone. My niece is 9 and honestly, I think she won't mind the secondhand gift. She'll just be happy that her auntie got her something. My dad doesn't really like me, so he tends to criticize everything I do. I feel like this is just another thing he's nitpicking. So, am I the asshole for giving my oldest niece a secondhand gift while buying my middle niece something new 2 years in a row? Am I the asshole for taking the router from a shared apartment? My significant other, S/O, and I are in our 20s, and we've been dating for a while before moving into an apartment together. He's notorious for procrastinating, which leads to situations where he scrambles to get things done. Because of this, I ended up taking care of a lot of shared responsibilities in our apartment, ordering furniture, managing the internet setup, paying the utility bills, etc. However, over time, I started feeling increasingly uncomfortable in the apartment due to his behavior. He often left doors and windows open, even though I have a temperature-sensitive pet who could die if it gets too cold. Additionally, he stained a piece of furniture that was especially meaningful to me, something I had inherited from my now-deceased grandparents, and I was devastated by how he treated it. Eventually, we started talking about breaking up. He told me that he had ADHD and wouldn't be able to remember to take care of these things, meaning I'd always have to double-check everything. He even said I'd have to clean up after him and make sure doors were closed, but I wasn't willing to risk my pet's life due to his negligence. When we bought the couch and the modem/router, he had paid me half for them. As we discussed the breakup, he said he didn't want the router since it was under my name. However, when I started packing up my things, he told me to leave the router until he could get a new one. I argued that it was mine, as I had paid for it and the internet was in my name. Here's where things got strange. He got really confrontational and grinned maniacally at me, saying that I couldn't take the router because it's an essential service, and I couldn't deny him internet access. I know he has unlimited data on his phone, and he doesn't work from home, so the internet is really just for gaming with his friends. He had already told me he'd get a new router, but I offered to let him keep the one we had if he paid me for my half. The coaxial cord is my father's, and it wasn't even meant to be kept, so it technically wasn't ours either. I was planning to cancel the bills that day anyway, and I wasn't sure if the internet would stop immediately or if it would still be active until the end of the billing cycle. I also felt it was weird that he wanted me to come back just for a router, and I felt like he was lying about needing it just to avoid being without internet for a few days. He even threatened to call the cops on me over it, which I wasn't sure would cause any real legal trouble. Maybe they'd just ask me to return it. So, am I the asshole for taking the router? Is it really removing an essential service, and would I get into trouble for doing so? Note: this is a throwaway account because I don't want my main account linked to this situation, as it's a personal matter. Am I the asshole for upsetting my mom and sister during a convention trip on my birthday? Last Friday was my birthday, and my mom and sister work at conventions. I usually tag along when the event isn't far from home. This time, it was near where I grew up, so I was looking forward to it. I wanted to eat at a chicken place and grab some bread, which are my favorite foods. We had planned to leave by 1:30 p.m. for the 2.5-hour drive so we'd have time to stop. However, they took too long getting ready, and we didn't actually leave until 5 p.m. By the time we got to the hotel, it was 8:30 p.m., so we just ate at a mall instead of the places I had in mind. At the convention, I was told not to work, but I helped out a little by watching the money when asked. I had my headphones on, but I still listened and did what they needed. On Monday, while we were packing up, we started talking about one of the helpers. I mentioned that he didn't do much, and my mom said, "You weren't watching the money." I clarified that I had been, but my sister jumped in and said, "You always had your headphones in." We exchanged the same words a few times, and my sister got really upset, telling me to shut up and saying she wouldn't bring me to conventions anymore. I stayed quiet after that and helped pack up. In the car, my mom said my sister felt bad and that I needed to just shut up when told. I said, "Okay, I just won't come with you anymore," and my mom told me to apologize, so I did. On top of all of this, I had been dealing with a personal issue on my phone since Friday. I didn't realize that we had already passed the places I wanted to stop for my birthday, so I missed my chance to get the food I had been craving, which we had planned weeks before. When my mom asked if I wanted to stop in another city, I said, no, not really, since it wasn't the food I wanted, but I told them we could stop if they were hungry. She yelled at me to shut up. After that, my sister and mom started arguing, and when I tried to calm things down by asking to talk about it, since I was already over the food issue, they yelled at me again. Now we're on the way home. My sister is crying, my mom is upset, and they're both silent. I acknowledged that I was wrong for not being more careful with my words, especially since I know my sister tends to overreact. But for them to blame me for ruining the mood when I was calm the whole time? I'm not sure if I'm the asshole here. So, am I the asshole for upsetting my mom and sister during the trip, especially on my birthday? Am I the asshole for requiring my sister's dog be kept separate from my reactive dog in my home? My family decided I should host the holidays this year, and my sister, who lives a few hours away, didn't confirm her attendance until recently. She assumed her new puppy, who is not house-trained, would be welcome. I initially went along with it, but after speaking to my dog trainer, I realized there were significant safety concerns. I have 2 large dogs, one of whom is extremely reactive due to being attacked by a stray in the past. He only gets along with his bonded sibling, and even they require strict supervision due to his reactivity and resource-guarding behaviors. My sister knows my dog's history. She also used to have a reactive dog and had rules about not allowing other dogs in her home. After speaking to my trainer, who has been helping my reactive dog manage increased stress and behavioral setbacks from a recent move, I learned that having another dog in the house could create a dangerous situation. The trainer recommended keeping the dogs completely separate if the puppy had to come and avoiding any interaction to ensure everyone's safety and to prevent a regression in my dog's progress. I reached out to my sister, apologized for the change of plans, and explained the safety concerns. I suggested alternatives: a dog sitter for her puppy, an Airbnb for her family nearby, using my finished basement with a private entrance and fenced yard for her puppy, while my dogs stayed upstairs. She refused all options, citing that she didn't want to spend money on an Airbnb or a sitter because it's the puppy's first Christmas. Note: she recently returned from a vacation and is in a high-income household. She didn't want her dog hidden in a basement or to sneak her dog in through a separate entrance, even though she keeps the puppy in her downstairs area when she's busy at home. Some family members sided with her, saying I was putting her in a tough spot, being a bad host, and that my boundaries weren't real and were just me being difficult. They felt I should let her do what she wants. After hearing these criticisms, I became overwhelmed and emotionally uninvited my sister and any family members who sided with her, suggesting they plan their own holiday elsewhere, since they wouldn't abide by the rules. Am I the asshole for going to an optometry clinic of my choice? I wear glasses, and recently my vision has gotten worse. Thankfully, I have insurance through my school that covers eye exams and glasses. 2 years ago, I went to my fiance's friend's optometry clinic for an eye exam and glasses. However, the clinic is far from where I live, and now that my eyesight has worsened, I needed a new pair of glasses sooner than expected. I decided to book an appointment at a clinic close to my house. The eye exam was covered by my insurance, but when I went to buy glasses, I found out that my insurance had already been charged for glasses this year, even though I hadn't purchased any since my last pair 2 years ago. I suspected my fiance's friend's clinic may have charged my insurance without my knowledge, but I didn't make a big deal of it and just paid for the glasses out of pocket. The real issue arose when my fiancé found out. He was furious with me for not going to his friend's clinic. He insisted that I should only go to his friend's clinic, saying it was out of respect for them and to support their business. I explained that it was too far to drive and I urgently needed new glasses, but he didn't understand. He's angry now, telling me I act emotionally and don't think things through logically. He believes I should have waited to go to his friend's clinic, even though it would have been inconvenient for me. I also want to note that my fiancé has perfect vision and doesn't really understand what it's like to rely on glasses just to be able to see clearly. I feel conflicted, Did I mess up by not listening to him and going to another clinic? Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for kicking my dad out of the house or leaving him to deal with foreclosure? My fiancé and I moved into my childhood home in May of 2024, where my dad had been living since my mom passed in 2020. He's a truck driver and often travels. He offered the house to us when our lease ended, saying we just need to cover utilities and take care of the house. However, once we moved in, we realized the utilities hadn't been paid regularly, leading to back payments. Then, last week, I found mail from a bankruptcy lawyer addressed to my late mom and learned that the house is in foreclosure due to 25 missed payments and a reinstatement fee of over $32,000. I contacted the mortgage company, and they gave me 3 options: pay the reinstatement fee, apply for home assistance, or sell the house. Since I'm not on the deed, I can't pursue the second or third options without being added. My dad, however, wants to save the house, but he's shown time and again that he's irresponsible and untrustworthy, especially with money. Now, I'm considering whether to move out with my fiancé, leaving him, to handle the foreclosure, or request a full transfer of the deed to me and see what options are available. The house was in my mom's name, and she would never have wanted this for me. My dad received over $100,000 in life insurance money after her passing, which he squandered on renovations. And here we are. Am I the asshole for wanting to take control of the house and potentially kick my dad out, or should I just leave him to deal with the foreclosure and move on? Am I the asshole for not letting my sister-in-law use our car? I, 31M, and my fiancé, 27F, recently had an argument about her sister using our car while she's visiting for the holidays. Her sister is coming to stay with us and wants to use our SUV to get around while she's in town. She has access to her father's car, but she prefers our vehicle because it's safer, more reliable, and better on fuel. I completely understand her reasoning and had no issue with her using the car in theory. The plan was that I would drive her father's car while she drove ours. No problem with that. However, I voiced a concern about insurance. I don't fully trust her sister's driving, and since she's coming from out of town, my insurance won't cover her if something happens. I also don't have rider insurance for anyone other than myself. My fiancé doesn't drive. So if anything were to go wrong, she wouldn't be covered, and our brand new vehicle could be at risk. After I expressed my concerns, my fiancé got upset and tried to argue that if the roles were reversed, her sister would do it for us. Well, I respect that. At the end of the day, it's our responsibility for the vehicle and I don't want to risk it. I tried to compromise by saying I would contact my insurance to see if I could add her temporarily for the visit, just to be safe. But my fiancé had already told her sister no, and instead of explaining the reasoning, she basically told her that I was being unreasonable. She even told me not to talk to her sister about it, which only made things worse because now her sister thinks I'm the bad guy, and it's going to make the visit awkward. The argument escalated, and my fiancé ended up practically threatening to break up over it. Eventually, we both just walked away from the situation. I don't feel like I'm being unreasonable. It's a new vehicle, and if something were to happen, her sister wouldn't be covered under insurance. Now I'm just confused and feeling stuck. Am I the asshole for not letting her drive the car? Am I the asshole for getting groceries without asking my significant other when money is tight? My partner and I have been eating out for nearly every meal over the past year, and it's taken a huge financial toll. We've spent so much on fast food, averaging $8 to $15 per meal, that we've struggled to pay rent on time, and when money runs out, we resort to eating instant ramen. This cycle has been exhausting and unsustainable. I've been working with my therapist on this issue, and they encouraged me to try grocery shopping and meal planning as a way to save money and eat healthier. I created a grocery list and showed it to my partner, but they dismissed it, saying $20 per day for groceries was outrageous and argued we might as well keep eating out. They didn't offer to make their own list, though, leaving us stuck in the same bad habits. My therapist, however, supported the idea of me shopping for groceries on my own, especially since we don't have joint finances and I should be allowed to prioritize my own food needs. Today, my partner suggested I go to Sam's Club and pick up a rotisserie chicken and cottage cheese to make a cheap meal. While there, I saw some tomato soup and bread that I thought would make good meals, so I added them to my cart. However, Sam's Club didn't have the cheese I needed, so I went to Kroger and bought shredded cheese, hummus, chips, coconut oil, popcorn kernels, and butter. Altogether, I spent about $55. Last week was my birthday, and my partner hadn't gotten me a gift yet. I told him I was fine with that, as long as he didn't get upset if I bought some groceries instead. Despite this agreement, he was furious when I came home, accusing me of going against him as a partner and saying he couldn't trust me. He called me the worst person at grocery shopping he's ever known and claimed there was no excuse for my behavior. He also said my therapist was out of touch with the financial struggles of poor people and shouldn't be giving me advice. Ultimately, he broke up with me, saying that if he couldn't trust me to follow his directions, there was no point in staying together. Was I wrong to buy groceries and try to break our cycle of eating out, even if it wasn't the most budget-conscious shopping trip? Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for telling my mom her stress doesn't mean she gets to be a jerk? My mom has been under a lot of stress lately. Her mother, who was visiting, fell and broke her hip and is now in the hospital recovering. My mom has had to help out with her and my grandfather, who are from out of town and can't go back home until the doctor clears my grandmother. I understand she's going through a tough time, and I try to be supportive. Tonight, I went to talk to her about a convention I'm attending in 2 weeks and the parking situation. There's a parking garage just a 2-minute walk from the convention center, so I was explaining how I plan to park. She seemed tired, so I offered to discuss it more in the morning after she'd rested. But she insisted it was fine to talk about it then. After a brief chat, she went off on a rant, saying that since I'm a young woman, I'm 22, I'll probably be assaulted if I go, and that she's not comfortable with me attending. I tried to explain that I'm an adult and have the right to choose where I go, and I just wanted to let her know my plans and ask for her opinion on parking. But instead of listening, she got angry, yelled at me for forcing the conversation on her, and told me to shut up before storming off. Later, I was looking for a box of my things. We recently remodeled, so I asked her where they were. She told me she moved them and promised she didn't throw anything away. I've had issues with her throwing away my stuff in the past, so, admittedly, I snapped and said, "Yeah, I've heard that before," as I walked away. I know that was a jerk move on my part, but I was still upset from the earlier argument. When I found the box, it was shoved upside down behind other heavy boxes, marked fragile, and had irreplaceable items inside. I went to her and asked her to be more careful with it, but she just ignored me and left the room. About 20 minutes later, I overheard her talking to my brother about how I was ungrateful and needed to get my head out of my ass. I opened the door and told her I didn't appreciate being badmouthed, and she yelled at me again, saying I was ungrateful and that her stress was the reason she was acting that way. I responded by saying that her stress didn't give her the right to treat people poorly. Once again, she yelled at me to shut up and left. My brother is on her side, and while I acknowledge that my comment about her throwing things away was an asshole move, I don't understand why she seems to think her stress gives her permission to make me the villain in every situation. I feel like I've been treated unfairly, but I know I may not have handled things perfectly. So, am I the asshole here? Am I the asshole for not telling my little sister's boyfriend I love you back? I'm 18M, the older brother of a 10-year-old little sister, Abby, who has a boyfriend named Dave, who is also 10. I've known Dave for about a year now. On Sunday, my family, my dad, stepmom, Abby, and I were heading to a party hosted by Dave's parents. His parents are really nice to me and treat us like family. I also have Dave's phone number because my sister gave it to him, and he gave me his in return, so we text pretty often about baseball and stuff like that. At the party, while everyone was sitting in the living room, Dave came up to me and asked to borrow my AirPods, which I agreed to. After I handed them to him, he said, "Thanks, I love you." He said it in a way that seemed like he was expecting me to say it back. I honestly didn't know what to do because I didn't know if it would be weird to say, "I love you," back to him, especially in front of his parents and my family. So instead of saying it back, I just gave him a little hug. He walked away looking a little upset, but I didn't think much of it at the time. After the party, Abby asked me why I didn't say it back to Dave, and I just told her, "I don't know." In reality, I just felt like it might have been awkward, especially with his parents around, since I think of Dave almost like a little brother to me. Later, my stepmom brought it up while we were talking about the party, and she said that it was a bit of a dick move, not to say it back. She told me that I probably hurt Dave's feelings and made him feel like I don't like him at all. I didn't want to argue, so I just agreed with her but didn't explain my side. She kept saying that it was important to say it back, especially in front of his parents, and that I might have looked like a jerk. Now, I'm here trying to figure out if I was wrong. I don't want to hurt Dave's feelings, but I also didn't know if it would be weird to say, I love you back, especially since I see him like a little brother. I do see him a lot, and I've known him for a while, but I'm still unsure whether I should have just said it back or if I was right to be unsure in that moment. So, AITA for not saying, I love you back to my little sister's boyfriend? Am I the asshole for having issues with my sister-in-law for telling my daughter no? I, 30F, have had issues with my sister-in-law, Anna, 32F, for a while now, and the latest situation just made things worse. A couple of weeks ago, Anna and my brother-in-law, Evan, were watching my 5-year-old daughter, Olivia. When it was time to leave, Olivia asked me for a snack that was in the house. Anna jumped in and said, Are you asking your mom for a snack? I don't know why you're asking her for the snack. This isn't her house and those aren't her snacks. I'm just trying to understand. Then she added, Just to let you know, she already had that snack not even 10 minutes ago. Mind you, Olivia was asking for a beef stick, and I didn't feel like there was any harm in letting her have it. I didn't know how to respond at the time, so I just wanted to leave the house as quickly as possible. But on the car ride home, I started to think about it and realized how messed up it was for Anna to deny my daughter a snack, especially in such a rude way. My daughter was just doing what she was supposed to, asking me, her mom, for something she wanted. If I say yes, then cool, and if I say no, we move on. When I told my husband about the situation, he was really upset. He texted Evan to confirm what happened, and Evan admitted it was true. However, he also added, It's not an excuse, but Anna is having a bad day. My husband, who grew up as a chunky kid, was particularly hurt by this because he remembers feeling ashamed when asking for food, and he felt that Anna's refusal was possibly related to Olivia's weight. My husband also isn't very fond of Anna, so after this, he decided he didn't want to attend Thanksgiving with her. Evan tried to convince us to go, saying Anna would be there, but when we showed up, Anna didn't say a word to us and just sat on the couch with a bad attitude. A few days later, my husband met with Evan to discuss the incident. According to him, Anna isn't sorry about what she said and believes we overreacted. Anna feels like she didn't do anything wrong and thinks the whole thing is blown out of proportion. This isn't the first time Anna has crossed a line with Olivia. There's been other instances where she has yelled at Olivia and her own daughter, including once when she said, If you don't start listening, I'm going to throw you both against the wall. When I spoke to Anna privately about this and told her I would appreciate it if she didn't speak to Olivia like that, she shrugged it off and said, It doesn't matter what I say. She's just going to learn to be afraid of me. Another time, we were getting ready to leave Anna's house, and my niece yelled that she wanted to go to her room to get something. Olivia excitedly said, I'm going to go with my cousin to her room. Before I could respond, Anna screamed, No, go outside. To Olivia. I feel like this last situation was the breaking point for me. I've tried to be understanding, but I'm just tired of how Anna treats my daughter. Am I being too sensitive about this? Am I the asshole for having issues with Anna for denying Olivia a snack and for how she's treated her in the past?
Am I the asshole for telling my mom that she is the reason I don't want to have kids? A 22-year-old female, have a rocky relationship with my mom. She was extremely mentally and emotionally abusive during my teenage years, and we fought multiple times a day. I was under immense pressure to perform well in tennis and academics, and if my grades weren't perfect, I'd be screamed at and told I wasn't trying hard enough, even after being diagnosed with ADD, getting medication, and achieving straight A's. She weighed me weekly, scolded me if I gained weight, and sent me to fat camp multiple times. She even made me be a camp counselor to lose weight before college, and refused to pick me up when everyone else quit, leaving me to run the camp alone at only 19. Nothing I did was ever good enough for her. During my freshman year of high school, I was close to my new tennis coach, who became a crucial male figure in my life. A year later, he was shot and killed. His death devastated me, but my mom refused to let me miss any school, saying, "High school is too important." When I became depressed, she accused me of being on drugs and threatened to drug test me, which was a huge blow since I'd never done drugs or alcohol. She did enroll me in group therapy at school, but she pulled me out when she realized I was missing classes for it. She told me, God took my coach away because I didn't appreciate him enough. Since then, I can't step into a church without breaking down, feeling like God hates me and took away someone I cared about. During fights, I often told her that once I left for college, I would cut her off completely. My dad encouraged me to write her a letter expressing how I felt, and in it I said I would never have kids because I didn't want them to be around her. Since then, she has made a big effort to mend our relationship, and recently things have improved between us. She still occasionally makes offhand remarks, and we do still fight sometimes when we're together, but it's night and day compared to before. Lately, my parents have started asking when I'm going to get married and have kids because they want to be grandparents. I haven't been in a relationship for over 3 years and am not currently dating. I told my mom I'm not sure I want kids, and she called me selfish. She said that she and my dad are devastated by the thought of not becoming grandparents and claimed it's not fair that I'm still punishing her for her past mistakes. She also asked how I plan to find a husband if I don't want children. While I initially said I didn't want kids to hurt my mom, I genuinely don't know if I want to have children. I know she has made a real effort to change, but I still feel some resentment toward her. Now, my mom is heartbroken over the possibility of never being a grandmother, and I feel guilty, especially because my dad is affected too, even though she has tried to make amends. Am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for stopping weekly dinners with my sister until she can either parent her kid or stay quiet about it? I, 30F, used to invite my sister J, 35F, and my niece L, 12F, to weekly family dinners every Friday. However, lately, Jay has been consistently turning every dinner into a session where she vents about her parenting struggles with L. Normally, I'd be open to lending a supportive ear, but it's reached a point where every conversation feels like a version of the same thing, and it's starting to drain me. Most of the time, it goes like this. Version 1. Jay. The meds aren't working because L stays up all night on her phone and then sleeps in class. Me. Okay. Take away the phone before bed, and don't give it back until the next morning. Problem solved. Jay. Well, I don't want to do that because then she gets mad at me. Me. Then what do you expect me to do? Version 2. Jay. L doesn't listen to me. I'm always getting calls from her school because she gives the teacher's attitude. Me. Okay. Then you need to figure out and enforce a punishment. Because that's not acceptable behavior. Jay. CL? Auntie says. Me. No, I'm not telling her to do anything. You're the parent, not me. You need to tell her what she is and isn't allowed to do. As you can see, I'm trying to offer practical solutions, but it's like Jay doesn't want to follow through or have any real solutions. She just wants to vent endlessly without actually making any changes. I'm getting really drained by it. I work long hours, and I just want a pleasant, relaxing dinner where we can talk about anything other than parenting struggles. So, I told Jay that I wasn't going to resume our weekly dinners until she could either step up and start parenting L, which I feel like she's not doing, or stop bringing it up every single time we're together. I told her that I'd be happy to listen to her vent, but I don't want to keep hearing the same complaints with no action taken on her part. Jay got upset and lashed out, accusing me of not caring about her or L, especially because I know her husband, L, isn't around to help consistently. She said I was being unsupportive for not listening to her struggles. I understand that she's going through a tough time, but I feel like I've been offering the same advice over and over, and nothing changes. I'm tired of having the same conversation week after week. My husband and I have talked about it, and we both agree I've set a boundary to protect my own mental space. So, am I the asshole for stopping our weekly dinners until she can either parent L or stop bringing it up every week? Am I the asshole for not splitting the surprise Thanksgiving bill? This year, my father-in-law, FIL, suggested that we host Thanksgiving. We live in a different state now, and we never spend Thanksgiving with them, but since we now live in between my FIL and my brother-in-law's BIL families, it made sense. We also have a bit more space, so we agreed to host for 12 people in total, including my other adult BIL and sister. When it came to the menu, my in-laws wanted to make 8 casseroles. My husband and I suggested that might be a bit much for our kitchen, but they were adamant about it being a family tradition, and everyone would be disappointed without them. We were fine with it, but that meant they were making a lot of the food. We ended up buying the turkey, drinks, green beans, mashed potatoes, pies, and other essentials, while they bought a lot of casserole ingredients. However, they kept complaining that the ingredients would go bad, and unfortunately we ended up using some of their butter and seasonings. I didn't pay much attention to it as it seemed like small stuff. The day before Thanksgiving, Phil kept going to the store for random items. Some of it was unnecessary and things that didn't even get used, like a pineapple peeler and ingredients for caramel apples. A bit odd, but I didn't make a fuss about it. Now, here's where things took a turn. After dinner, as one of my BALs was about to leave, he pulled my husband and Phil aside and suggested they split the bill. He said that because of the high costs of hosting, they should each cover a third of the expenses, and he'd send out the receipts for Venmo reimbursement. My husband was taken aback and didn't know how to respond. The BAL seemed to think this would help my husband, not realizing that Phil had not even hosted the dinner. After my BAL left, I was cleaning in the kitchen, and Phil started talking to my husband about how he'd exclude the drinks from the bill. That's when I finally said something. This is very different from how things are done in my family. In my family, we contribute by cooking dishes and it's all established ahead of time. Phil then explained that he thought everyone should contribute financially, but I pointed out that everyone should pitch in, not just the married men, my husband, Phil, and Bil. It got awkward, and Phil kept talking about the high costs of groceries. I felt uncomfortable, and my husband and I weren't planning on splitting the bill because we had already paid for a significant portion of the meal. I understand that hosting can be expensive, but we weren't the ones who insisted on making 8 casseroles, and my Phil wasn't technically the one hosting, it was us. Now I'm feeling a bit guilty because maybe I overstepped by speaking up, but I really didn't think it was fair to ask us to contribute even more. AITA for not wanting to split the Thanksgiving bill? Update. AITA for ruining the surprise my boyfriend organized for my birthday? First off, I want to apologize for not responding to any of the comments earlier. I honestly got overwhelmed by the amount of attention my post received, and I wasn't sure how to handle the hundreds of people offering advice, especially telling me to break up with my boyfriend. I guess I was just trying to process everything and didn't know how to deal with all the support and feedback. So we did break up. I know some people were hoping for a dramatic confrontation, but that's just not how I handled it. To be honest, I'm terrified of conflict, so it wasn't as bold or dramatic as people might have imagined. I didn't confront him with the comments or anything. I'm not really the type to bring up stuff like that directly. We did technically make up the day after my birthday when I posted my original post. But looking back, I realized that we hadn't really resolved anything at all. He just made me apologize to him for my reaction, and I didn't get a chance to express my anger or how hurt I felt. Now I see that I was just swept along in his apology without having the chance to really process things. I tried to take some time and figure out how to approach it, thinking I'd bring it up later in a calm way. So, the next day after lunch with him, I ended up asking him why he did what he did. It wasn't something I planned on saying at the time, but the anger had been simmering, and I didn't know how to ignore it anymore. I tried not to sound angry because I don't like to come off that way, but I had to ask. His response was so off. He said he wanted to get to know the people that raised me, which didn't make any sense considering that I've literally told him 1,000,000 times that my older sister is the one who raised me, not my parents. When he met my sister and her husband, we actually joked about it like meeting the parents, and that should have been a clue. Then he said something that made me realize I couldn't move forward in the relationship. He said, "I don't understand how someone can stop talking to their family." I've explained to him so many times why I've cut ties with my parents. He's asked me more than once, and I've always answered. But this time, hearing him say that, I think it clicked for me that he just doesn't get me. He hasn't made any real effort to understand why I feel the way I do about my family. So, I ended up telling him that I couldn't be in a relationship with someone who doesn't respect me or what I want. I dropped him off, and after that, I told him I didn't want to see him anymore. He didn't take it well, of course, but honestly, his emotions aren't my responsibility anymore. I feel really sad right now because even though I know this was the right decision in the long run, breakups still suck. I did love him, and it's hard to let go of someone you cared about. But I'm hopeful that in time, I'll feel okay. I really appreciate all the support from everyone. This meant a lot to me during this tough time. Am I the asshole for refusing to talk to my husband's ex-wife's wife? I, 38F, am married to my husband, 50M, who shares custody of his two kids, 16F and 12M, with his ex-wife, 48F. His ex is remarried to her wife, 48F, who has become extremely involved in the co-parenting dynamic. They had been divorced for 8 years when my husband's ex-wife left him for her current wife. I met my husband almost 6 years ago, and we got married earlier this year. From the beginning, I've tried to be polite and respectful when interacting with his ex-wife and her wife. However, over time, I've grown to avoid any direct contact with them, especially my husband's ex-wife's wife. Every time I do engage, she finds a way to talk down to me or make passive-aggressive comments, both to my face and indirectly through the kids. For example, she'll say things like, "I'm surprised you're here. With you it's always hit or miss." Or, "We're too old for what you do." She's also made snide remarks about how I am not good with the kids, saying things like, "You can always ask me questions, as I know how to parent them." The kids have picked up on it, too. They've mentioned things like, "Stepmom says you don't really know about kids because you don't have any," or, "Stepmom and mom said you're only involved because dad needs help." It's incredibly frustrating, especially because I've made every effort to build a good relationship with the kids and respect their boundaries. I finally decided that, for my own sanity, I'm done trying to engage with her. I still talk to my husband's ex-wife when necessary, but I won't involve myself with her wife anymore. Of course, this hasn't gone unnoticed. Now, the ex-wife and her wife are accusing me of being inappropriate and difficult because I won't speak to her or coordinate directly with her. They insist that her involvement is necessary and that I'm not prioritizing what's best for the kids. But here's the thing. I'm not refusing to co-parent. I'm refusing to subject myself to someone who consistently disrespects me and undermines my role in the kids' lives. My husband agrees with me, but I'm still questioning whether I'm doing the right thing for the kids by drawing this line. Additionally, I am pregnant, and this is causing me great stress. The ex-wife is already creating conflict with my husband every chance she gets. She interferes with our custodial time every week and constantly berates him in the parenting app they use to communicate. Am I the asshole for refusing to talk to his ex-wife's wife? Am I the asshole for refusing to look after the child of a parent who may need to go to the hospital? I have 2 daughters in their early teens. The older one is autistic. A couple of years ago, my younger daughter had a sleepover with about 6 or so friends for her birthday. A few days later, we received a request from the father, Gary, of one of these girls, Elsie, asking if she could stay over because he had to work a night shift. My wife and I were surprised by this request, as we didn't know him well and we wouldn't want our kids staying with someone we didn't know. However, we agreed and Elsie stayed with us. Elsie and Gary then signed up for a weekly class that both my kids attend. Since Gary doesn't drive, I started giving them a lift every week. This is the only interaction I have with Gary. I'm not close with him at all. Despite this, he asked a few more times, about 3 or 4, if Elsie could stay at our house. Over the past year or 2, my daughter has grown distant from Elsie and my older autistic daughter doesn't like the invasion of her space when we have someone stay over. It also complicates our work-from-home situation, as we need our office set up as an extra bedroom. My kids usually cycle to school, but since Elsie doesn't have a bike, I need to drive them, which is an inconvenience to me. Even so, we always agreed to help Gary out since he's a single parent and Elsie seemed to be in need. Recently, Gary became ill and was admitted to the hospital. He asked if Elsie could stay with us again while he was in the hospital, and we agreed because we felt sorry for him. We ended up looking after her for 5 days, but at first we weren't sure how long it would be. Gary knew he would need to go back to the hospital at some point but didn't make any arrangements for Elsie. When he was admitted again, he assumed she could stay with us once more. We felt we had no choice but to look after her. This time it was for 10 days and it was really pushing our limits. My autistic daughter was really struggling with having a guest in the house for that long. A few days after Gary got out of the hospital, he messaged us to say that he might need to go back in and asked if Elsie could stay with us again. This time, I quickly shut it down and said there's no way she can stay again. I feel bad because he's a single parent and claims he has no one else to turn to, but I also feel he's had plenty of time to make other arrangements, and I need to put my own children first. Elsie's mother is alive, but not an option for reasons I don't know. So, am I the asshole for not helping out a sick father in need for the 6th or 7th time?
Am I the asshole for going to my sister's place after my dad's wife was rushed to the hospital? A week ago, my dad's wife, who is 7 months pregnant, was rushed to the hospital after she started bleeding and having trouble breathing. My dad's in-laws were at the house visiting their daughter and grandkids when it happened. My dad went to the hospital with his wife. I'm a 17-year-old male, and instead of staying at my dad's house with his in-laws, his stepdaughter, who's 10, and his other kids, 3 years and 18 months old, I went to my sister's, 22, place. My dad's in-laws wanted me to stay with the kids so they could go to the hospital to check on their daughter, but I just wanted to leave, so I left without further discussion. I ended up spending 3 nights with my sister before my dad showed up and demanded that I return to his house. For some context on why I didn't stay and the family dynamics. My sister and I are full siblings. My dad left my mom when she was pregnant with me. After he left, he took a job driving trucks and wasn't around much. Later, he moved about an hour away from us and started seeing us a bit more. Eventually, he moved closer and tried to get equal parenting time, but since he hadn't taken all the visitation time he was offered before, never paid child support, and didn't have a big enough place to give us our own rooms, and wouldn't give up his bedroom for one of us, he was denied. He eventually got married, became a stepdad, and had more kids with his wife. Last year, my mom passed away and my dad and sister went to court over my custody. I wanted to live with my sister, but the court ruled that my dad should get a chance since he'd never really had much time with me. They said my sister was too young to support me the way my dad could. I protested, but it didn't change the outcome. I plan to live with my sister as soon as I turn 18, and we have a plan for that. My dad doesn't know but keeps trying to make me forgive him and give his family a chance, wanting me to be part of his family. Not interested, not even in his kids. He tried to make me feel responsible as the older sibling, until he realized I have no interest in his kids. His wife decided that if I wasn't willing to give them a chance, then she wouldn't allow me to keep any photos of my mom or sister in her house. I ended up giving all my photos to my sister. She even went through my belongings to check, and ever since she reminds me almost daily that I'll regret not wanting anything to do with her kids when they're older. She even once wished that my sister would end up homeless because my sister didn't want to have a relationship with her kids either. She was also angry because my sister had gone to court to ensure that my dad would still pay the overdue child support he hadn't paid my mom. Back to the current situation. After my dad made me return to his house, he yelled at the top of his lungs, accusing me of abandoning my family, and for not showing more concern for his wife and the unborn baby, or for the kids who could have lost their mom. For all I knew, he said he deserved better. I told him he deserved nothing from me or my sister. He said my actions showed that I wasn't growing into a man, but a pathetic little boy. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for asking my landlady to pay for the ice cream her grandchildren ate and the notebook they tore? For some context, I'm a student in my final year and living off my savings, so I don't have much money. I rent a room near my university from a lady who also rents out rooms to 2 other university students, so it's typically just adults in the house. Recently, my landlady's grandchildren have been visiting. There are 3 kids between the ages of 2 and 7. Normally, we leave our doors open around the house because it's just us adults and we all trust each other. But with the kids running around, I started keeping my door closed, though not locked. One afternoon, I came back to my room feeling that something was off, as though someone had been there and tried to put things back as they were. I was a bit nervous, so I asked my best friend, who rents another room, if he'd come in, but he said no. Then I noticed a bookmark on the floor. When I went to check in the kitchen, I found my special notebook, a birthday gift from my best friend a few years ago with a cute cat design, under a table. It was dirty, torn, and unusable. The landlady saw me almost crying. Stationery and gifts are special to me, and she offered to pay for a new one, but unfortunately that one is discontinued. Later, I decided to relax with some ice cream, which was a treat since my mom had sent me some extra money. But when I opened the freezer, I saw that the kids had eaten all of it, about a liter. The landlady doesn't know about the ice cream yet, But today I want to ask her to cover the cost of both the notebook and the ice cream. I feel conflicted because I don't want to seem rude, but I don't have a lot of extra money, and having my things eaten and broken has left me feeling very frustrated. I've now started locking my door. Update: it went well. I talked to her and she was understanding. She even asked if I'd found a replacement for the notebook. She also gave me a plate of homemade food, which is honestly a lifesaver as a student. I appreciate everyone's advice. I felt hesitant about asking, because I have a soft spot for kids. Regarding privacy, we've discussed it and she assured me the kids were scolded and warned not to enter other rooms. Luckily, I didn't have anything dangerous at their reach. Am I the asshole for not leaving my estate to my severely disabled brother? I, 33F, received a terminal diagnosis earlier this year. I have a couple of years at best to get everything in order before I won't have the cognitive ability to do so anymore. I've been working with a lawyer and an end-of-life care social worker to make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible and that my wishes are respected. My family situation is complicated. My parents were never married and my dad passed away from the same condition I now have when I was 12. He never remarried, so his assets were put in a trust for me by my grandparents. My mom married after they broke up and had my half-brother, 26M, who is severely mentally disabled. He has the cognitive level of a 7-year-old in an adult's body, and he's very challenging to care for, even with all the resources they have. My mom and stepdad struggle financially, and they tried hard to get control of my trust while I lived with them, but they couldn't. I occasionally help them out financially, but it feels like my mom treats me as an emergency fund rather than as her daughter. My stepdad has always been bitter about the financial aspect, especially since my dad's family is well off. I don't share much about my life with them because they often get passive-aggressive and guilt-trippy. Now that I know I'm on borrowed time, I've been trying to talk more with my mom. We've never had a great relationship, but I wanted to try to resolve some issues. Since my diagnosis, she's been nicer and more concerned, so I thought it was okay to open up a bit. I didn't want her to be blindsided or feel obligated to take on anything, as I've appointed another family member to handle my medical and financial power of attorney. I explained that I'd arranged for my own care so she wouldn't feel burdened, and she was thankful for that. But then, she brought up how she had always hoped I'd be the one to ensure my brother was taken care of after she was gone and assumed that, in a way, I still would be. She suggested that whatever I leave behind could go into his care fund, and she'd make sure he knew it was from his big sister. Here's where I might be the asshole. I'm not leaving anything to my mom or my brother. I don't have kids, but I've been the favorite auntie to my best friend's 2 children for their entire lives. They are the light of my life and I spend a lot of time with them. My best friend and I have been through a lot together. She and her husband have been the ones going with me to appointments and letting me stay with them when I was too sick for meds to be home alone. I plan to leave whatever remains of my estate to her kids for college. I know the money could help secure better care for my half-brother and relieve some of my mom's burden, but I feel I want to help someone else now. Edit. Thank you for the kind messages. To answer a few questions. A. I'm not close to my half-brother at all. I didn't meet him until my dad passed, and the 6 years I lived around him were challenging and sometimes frightening. I haven't seen him in person in 15 years. I doubt he even understands that he has a sister, or what that would mean. I care about his welfare as much as I would any other mentally disabled person, but I don't feel a familial bond just because we share DNA. I've already contributed a fair amount to help my mom stay solvent to care for him, so one could argue he's already benefited significantly. As much as my mom may wish it, I would never have taken on legal responsibility for him after her passing. His father's family could step in if they chose. B. I am working with a strong team to get things in order. My estate lawyer and financial advisor are prepared to lock everything down once I finalize my decisions about my assets. I trust my executor, so the logistics and legal planning are under control. I just need to make a few hard decisions. Reflecting on some of the responses, I'm considering closing the chapter on my relationship with my mom and her family. I've always hoped that she cared in her own way and that our relationship could improve, but I'm not sure I want to spend what time I have left chasing that. The social worker offered to set up family sessions with a counselor specializing in terminal family issues, so I may let that be my guide. Am I the asshole for telling my best friend that I am pregnant? I'm a 33-year-old woman and I've been very close friends with N, 31, for about 8 years. We've gone through a lot together, and over the past year and a half, I've been by her side for her infertility journey. She has been through 2 inseminations and 2 rounds of IVF, all without success. She has PCOS and doesn't ovulate naturally. My partner and I started trying for a baby around the same time she did, and in the past I asked if she would want to know if I got pregnant. She told me I could tell her. A couple of months ago her second round of IVF failed, and she was understandably devastated. She mentioned that she didn't want to talk about pregnancies when we met up, so we avoided the topic. At that time I already knew I was pregnant, but I respected her wishes and didn't say anything. 2 weeks later, she called and told me her doctors had discovered a possible reason for why IVF wasn't working. She was undergoing treatment for an infection and was hopeful she could try again in a month. I was excited for her and supportive. Since she had brought up the topic of her treatment again, I decided that I would tell her I was pregnant when we met in person. I was already 10 weeks along and planned to announce it publicly soon, so I wanted her to hear it directly from me. When we met up, we chatted about her for a bit and then I shared my news. Her reaction was cold and she only said, "Oh, congratulations then," followed by, "That was fast, huh?" I was a bit taken aback but gave her grace given her situation. Although I had hoped she would be happy for me, I understood and decided to give her time and space, so we didn't talk again for a month. A month later, I reached out to ask about an exam she had at work. She replied with a 4-minute audio message, telling me she was offended that I had told her about my pregnancy when she had specifically asked not to talk about that topic. She said she didn't want to hear the news from me and didn't want to see me for a while. Was shocked and explained that she had reopened the topic by discussing her treatment and that I thought she would be optimistic about the new discoveries. I also felt hurt by her setting the terms for when and how we could be friends. It's been a month since then and we haven't spoken. I think about her and worry for her, but I also feel hurt that she doesn't want to be part of my life or my baby's life. I'm not sure if this friendship would be healthy if she does want to reconnect. So, am I the asshole?
Am ideation for possibly killing a deal that my family and our benefit greatly from. My parents our house in a relocation, and we've been in talk with an investor about building a large apartment complex here. I have 2 sisters, both married with 2 kids. In our culture, property tradition restoration to keep it in the family name, but if and way to my parents I wanting to be FIR. Regardless of the outcome, I plan to give 50% of the property to my sister, and the rest of this. Recently, my sister have been indirectly pressing my parents, especially my mother, to agree with the investor, and they are already making inheriting plan. I see this as a big ready. My parents are ready, my dad is thinking of moving, and my mother is doing it for our future. Financial, I'm doing well, while my sister and her husband are struggling. They pushing are facing challenge, and even them significant amount over time without expecting repayment. Family is family. I also send my parents money monthly for living expenses and additional support for any home repair or replacement. My sister don't contribute financial, but they are physically present for my parents since I live abroad. What really upset me was when one of my brother-in-law overstepped his role. Since I'm not physically there to negotiate, he was supposed to act as a mediator. Instead, he started negotiating directly with the investor and even to me what I shall accept, trying to convince me it was a good deal. I called my parents to say I was going to put a stop to all this interference, as it felt like there were too many people involved, including the investor. My father agreed, but my mother thought I was overstand. At that point, I lost my temper and said, so the song shall stay on the side while the sons-in-law make on the decision. I might apologize to a lot of people, as I rarely agree or assert myself when it comes to family matter. Today, I called the investor and laid out exactly what we wanted, saying we didn't need any further back and forth, just a simple yes or no will suffice. He tried to pressure me to love our expectino, and what really set me off was when he said, "It other powerful people, take out fiat the property, block construction, or even rerun it to be a parking lot." It felt like a trick, and I don't really to scale tactic. Generally, I kept me cung and told him I giờ get back to him. I then called me Jack, at like the situtino, and said I planned to tell the investor to back off. I called them again and made it clear, this is the price, no meeting, no can lốt, and I don't appreciate it. He panic and apologize, but I cut him off, saying, that it's fine, a parking lot sounds nice anyway. Not everything in life is about money. Later, my mom called and said either overrate and potentially blow a great opportunity. I told her, how long will you sacrifice your dignity for money? It would only make her angry. Now I'm left wondering if I was wrong and there song for how I handle this situation.
Am I the asshole for asking my roommate to close the door when she's having sex? My roommate, 28-year-old female, and I, 21-year-old female, have been living together for about 8 months now, and we generally get along really well. We've had some issues, mainly because I'm a bit messier than she is, but I've always thought we had good communication and usually managed to talk things out to reach a solution. Over these 8 months, my boyfriend, 23-year-old male, has come over many times, and whenever he spends the night, I always check in with my roommate the next day to make sure we weren't being too loud. So far, there have been no complaints about him being over. Today, my roommate brought over the guy she's currently seeing. He's been over a few times before and I don't usually mind. However, today they came home while I was sleeping. I've been going to bed around 8:30 p.m. due to seasonal depression, and I woke up to the sound of them having sex. This hadn't happened before and I decided to go outside to give them more privacy. On my way out, I noticed that her bedroom door was wide open. Once I was outside, I texted her saying, "Hey, sorry to say this, but can you please close your door? I can hear everything. I came outside now, but if you can please?" Her response was simply, "Sorry, I never told you when you were too noisy with your visits." I immediately felt bad, apologized, and said that she could have mentioned it to me before if it was an issue. She replied with, "Okay." I try to be more understanding. I didn't mean to embarrass her. I just thought maybe she could close the door as she has done in the past. Now she says she can't close it because of her cat, who needs access to roam and use the litter box. I wonder if I should have just put on some music and not said anything, but I assumed she would have mentioned it if I made her uncomfortable. My boyfriend thinks I'm not in the wrong, but maybe I shouldn't have texted her while they were still having sex. Am I the asshole? Edit. I've noticed a lot of people are surprised about leaving the door open during sex, and I agree it's unusual. But to be fair, she explained that she keeps it open because of her cat. If she closes it, the cat can't walk around freely or access the litter box, which is why she left it open.
Wife drunkenly flirted with my sister. As the title says, my wife, 28F, and sister, 41F, were drunk last night and sent each other flirty texts. I, 34F, am devastated and don't know what to do. We have been married for just over a year, together for 4 years. For context, my wife and I are visiting my sister and family for Thanksgiving this year. We live across the country, but it was very important for us to be together as a family because my mom unexpectedly died 6 weeks ago. My wife and sister are very similar and have been bonding a lot over crafts, coffee, etc. They've been getting closer after my mom's funeral as we all spent a lot of time together. I was really excited to see them be so close because my wife doesn't have a great relationship with her family. Here's where things get messy. I've been really struggling with my mom's death and I have been feeling very self-conscious about how vulnerable I've been allowing myself to grieve openly in front of my wife. When I get stressed/upset, I lean into connecting with her as it balances me. She, on the other hand, is more of an avoidant attachment style, so when she gets overwhelmed, she withdraws a bit. Yesterday we had a big discussion about how she's not been showing up as much in this relationship. She was defensive at first, but later said how she completely understood and knew she needed to do better. We were hanging out at my sister's last night and the two of them went on a wine run. When they got back, we were all on the couch watching TV and I was laying down with my legs resting on my wife's lap. She was sitting next to my sister texting a bit, but nothing too crazy. Later, after she was the drunkest she's ever been, I went to drive us back to the hotel. Before we left, she wanted to run to the bathroom and left her phone in the car. I picked it up to get the hotel's address pulled up on the GPS and I see messages between her and my sister, with my wife asking my sister, "Are the small discreet touches okay?" My sister responded saying yes, absolutely, and my wife said she couldn't help but to think of this song about kissing someone's neck. At this point, my heart had sunk into my chest. My sister had previously pushed boundaries with an ex-boyfriend of mine years ago, and my wife is very much aware that this is a sensitive topic for me. I consider this cheating, and also such a betrayal from the two of them during an already difficult time. I know the alcohol didn't help, but I also know that this wouldn't have just come out of nowhere half a bottle of wine in. My wife is a mess and spent all night apologizing, crying and saying she'll do whatever it takes to re-earn my trust. My question is it even possible to move past this? Any advice from others who have had a spouse flirt with someone, let alone their sibling, is appreciated.
Would I be the asshole if I charge for a cover-up of a nasty tattoo I did? I've been tattooing for a year now, and this is the first cover-up I'm doing of a tattoo I did myself. A few weeks ago, I tattooed a saying in Arabic on a girl's back. We both thought it translated to appreciate life, because the translation was right under the words in Arabic in the photo she sent me. A few days ago, she messaged me saying she wanted me to delete the picture of her tattoo off my page because it actually translates to something awful. I was shocked, so I ran the photo through Translate Lens myself multiple times, and it turned out she was right. The translation was gross. Normally, I check the meaning of tattoos in foreign languages, but I didn't check this one because the translation came with the reference photo. I quickly deleted the post and offered to work on a cover-up together if she was open to it. She agreed and I finished the design. She likes it and we're planning to do it soon. Here's the issue. I feel guilty about this whole situation because it's never happened to me before. I feel bad that I put something that awful on someone's body, and while I'm happy to cover it, I feel really ashamed of charging her for the cover-up. It's my fault I didn't check the translation, and I'm afraid she might think the cover-up is free as a form of apology. I don't want to make her feel like I'm just trying to charge her for something that I messed up. She may also think that because we have a mutual friend, I'm offering this as an apology, but honestly, I don't even know if I did anything wrong. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I'm conflicted because on one hand I want to help her and I feel bad, but on the other hand, this is a complex cover-up, and I don't really have the financial means to give it away for free. If she were a close friend, I would totally do it for free, but she's a friend of a friend's girlfriend, and I'm unsure where we stand. So, would I be the asshole if I charge her for this cover-up? If I do, I'll definitely cut the price down a lot.
How can I help my husband become his own person? My husband, 33M, asks me 30F. A never-ending slew of questions. I feel like he has taken a back seat in his own brain and instead uses me to think for me. I am mentally exhausting from the endless decision-making. I've made a list of what I would say are daily questions. What's your plan? What's your plan tomorrow? What's your plan this week? What do you want to do? What do you want to eat? What time? Who will be there? When is that? Where is that? What time are we leaving? What are you doing? Will you read this email? When do you want to date? What you want to do for the date? What are you wearing to the date? What should I wear? Does this look good? Glasses or no glasses? Hat or no hat? Which shoes? What shirt? Do you like these pants? What should I get for my mom? What should I get for my dad? What should I get my secret Santa person? Do you want me to help? Can you help me wrap my presents for my parents? What's the password for literally anything? What's your family's plan? Where should we plan a trip to? What do you want to do this weekend? Who should I invite? What should I order? What should I say back to them? What should I do? I want my partner to be his own person and make decisions for himself. I find that to be attractive. I've been with him since I was 19 and have started seeing a lot of issues in our relationship lately. I don't know if it's how much we've changed or if I am finally realizing what I value in a partner. How can I address this without sounding hateful? When I say something like you're asking a lot of questions, he says I'm just trying to figure out, insert here, and you're making it weird. He gets offended or makes a face, or shuts down and gets pouty. TLDR. How can I push him to get his own friend group, social life, wardrobe, and make a plan without needing me to think through every decision for him?
Am I the asshole for requesting that my teacher not partner me with my deadbeat father's daughter? My father walked out on my mom when she was pregnant with me, 16M. They'd been married for about 5 years, but he was cheating a lot. Mom had a tough time trying to divorce him because they had just moved and he was difficult to track down. He never met me and didn't show up at court for their divorce, custody hearings, or for child support proceedings. He even went to jail 3 times for failure to pay child support and trying to avoid it by quitting jobs and not disclosing his new employment. I still haven't met him, but about a year ago he moved back with his family, his affair partner and their kids. He has a daughter who's about 5 months younger than me, a son about a year and a half younger, and some younger kids whose ages I don't know. I only know the older two's ages because of school and sharing some classes with his daughter. She's tried to connect with me, but I told her I wasn't interested. To me, we're not family and I don't want to get involved with his affair family. She was visibly upset and cried a bit in front of me, but she didn't give up. When school started in August, she was suddenly in 4 of my classes instead of just 1 like last year. So I went to our teacher, who assigns a lot of group work, and asked her not to pair me with her. I explained the situation, and the teacher was surprised but agreed it would be best to avoid any potential hostility during group projects, especially when other students are involved. Twice now, she's tried to pair up with me or include me in her group. The first time she tried to be my solo partner, and the second time she tried to include me in a larger group. Both times our teacher refused. This made her realize what I'd done. She told her parents, who went to the principal and demanded a meeting with me and my mom. Mom went but didn't include me, explaining to the principal that she didn't think the first time I should meet my father would be when he's berating me for not working with his daughter. They tried to claim that I was bullying their daughter and suggested I should be either suspended or forced to make it up to her through some sort of buddy program. The principal didn't take their complaint seriously, but now both his daughter and son have been staring at me more at school since the meeting. A couple of her friends even said I was a jerk for embarrassing her and refusing to get to know her. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole if I get birds instead of helping my sisters? I, 34-year-old female, bought a large Victorian manor fixer-upper a few years ago. It's been a massive labor of love. Everything needed replacing from the roof down to the studs. Little by little, I've put in the work to make it my own. One of the unique features of the house is a very large glass atrium/aviary located in the center. It spans all 4 stories, doming out over the roof like a skylight. Inside, there's a mature tree that reaches up to the 3rd floor, along with other vegetation, a small koi pond and 2 benches. It's truly the focal point of the house and was what sold me on buying it. Now that the house renovations are nearly complete, including work on the atrium, I'm getting ready to bring in birds. Every month, a professional comes by to check the thermostat, humidity, misters, water pH, and other essentials. On his next visit, he'll bring the birds and teach me how to care for them in between visits. It's a huge commitment, but I'm excited for it. I have 2 sisters, Ashley, 25 years old, and Katerina, 36 years old. Our relationship is strained because they generally treat me as a financial resource. Over the past year, I've started setting boundaries with them, refusing to pay their rents, car notes, and allowances. I encouraged them both to get jobs, which they didn't appreciate, arguing that family helps family, and since I'm doing well financially, I should support their very expensive lifestyles. In a recent conversation, I mentioned my excitement about getting the birds, as I had birds growing up and have been looking forward to this for a long time. My older sister said that keeping birds indoors is animal abuse and threatened to call animal services on me. My younger sister chimed in, saying it was a waste of money and that I could be helping them instead, especially since they missed their usual summer vacation, which I had always funded. They went on so harshly that I started to tear up. My younger sister later apologized, admitting she was harsh but saying I needed to hear the truth. My older sister stood firm, saying she had nothing to apologize for. I left their apartment on bad terms. They're still upset, saying that blood is thicker than water, or in this case, birds. I worry that I may have been so focused on my excitement that I'm being selfish. My responsibilities toward them seem endless and exhausting, and I just wanted to have something for myself. But maybe they're right and I'm being the asshole for prioritizing birds over family. Edit *, I appreciate everyone's support. It strengthened my resolve to go low contact for now. Also, I've received messages accusing me of destroying a historic home, which couldn't be farther from the truth. I restored it to its original glory, including intricate crown moldings, gold inlays, and the sweeping front banisters, even restoring the dumbwaiter. This restoration took blood, sweat, and tears, and it was never a DIY job.
Girlfriend, 26F, wants me, 27M, to call her as soon as I am done working out at the gym, instead of calling her once I get in the car. What should I do? Hi everyone. Just wanted to get this off my chest, but also hear some feedback. Me and my girlfriend have been dating for a year. Within this year, she has either asked or straight up demanded me to do many things for her to curb or ease her insecurities, you could say. Now I'm not going to list every single request or rule, simply because I would need a book to explain why and what. Also, keep in mind I've been nothing but faithful and loyal to her, so I am definitely not the root cause of these insecurities. I'm writing this out because I am so frustrated and angry with her. It feels like she has no problem asking me uncomfortable questions or putting me in uncomfortable positions, especially when I know I've been nothing but faithful to her. Instead of thinking about how her suspicions and questions may make me feel, she ends up asking me to do something about the situation to help her feel better. When I fight back or tell her how it makes me feel, she hits me with a, "Well, do you care about our relationship or this issue more?" I was at the gym working out, and as she had woken up, she messaged me to give her a call when I finish. I said, "Of course, babe." Called her the moment I got into my car, and the first thing that comes out of her mouth is, "Why don't you ever call me from the gym? You always call me once you get in the car." To even ask me that question irritates my soul because what the fuck does it matter? What are you implying here? Anyways, I said because I don't call because it's just easier to call hands-free versus having my bag in one hand and holding up my phone in the other hand, especially when you're exhausted. This turned into a whole back and forth between me and her, and it ended with her asking me to call her at least once a week straight from the gym instead of calling from the car. When I asked her why she needs that from me, because I'm more than willing to accommodate and reassure if I at least understand, her response was, "I don't know. Can you do that for me?" It always in some sort of, "if you care about us, you'll do it" request. I've been fuming all day for so many reasons, the implied suspicion that I'm with someone at the gym, the silly request to make her feel better about it, even though it just doesn't make sense, the lack of regard for me and my feelings when she asks me questions like that or needs some sort of gesture from me to ease her insecurities. I'm so sick of it. What do you guys think? What should I do?
Am I the asshole for texting my roommate's boyfriend because she told me to? I, 23-year-old female, live with 3 other girls, Kelly, 23, Gina, 22, and Jasmine, 20. We're college students sharing a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom duplex. I've been here for 3 years, 2 of them with Gina. Before she moved in, I made it clear I'm strict about keeping shared spaces clean. Gina, who's an only child and had never lived with others, has had to adjust, but she's improved, except when her boyfriend, Jake, 22, is over. Jake, who lives with his parents, visits frequently, but he has no regard for our space or basic etiquette. He's left trash around, his size 13 shoes block the doorway, and he stained my couch and rug with food. I've asked Gina multiple times to speak with him about this, but she just gets annoyed and insists it's not her responsibility. The other roommates agree with my standards, but I'm usually the only one who speaks up. The final straw came one morning when I found our shared bathroom soaked. The floor mats and towels were drenched, the shower curtain was barely hanging, and there was clutter everywhere as if Jake had showered outside. The shower. I couldn't even use the sink without cleaning up first. Then in the kitchen I found their half-eaten fast food left all over the stove. Frustrated, I threw it out. I texted Gina about the mess and she told me to bring it up directly with Jake since he did it. So I texted him, explaining that if he couldn't respect our space, he couldn't use anything I owned in the house, including most of the living room and kitchen items. He apologized but dismissed it, responding, "I'll just stay in Gina's room then." Gina then texted me, hysterical and crying. She was on our porch telling Jake how unfair I was being and saying it's not her fault. She demanded I allow Jake to use my things, arguing it's her house too. I told her he's welcome to use anything she owns in her space, like her room or the shared bathroom, but not mine. I also pointed out that, like with a pet, she's responsible for her guests' mess. Now she's telling people I'm banning Jake from the house. Not true, I just set boundaries with my things, and they're threatening to report me. I laughed and told them they could. Am I the asshole? I haven't yelled, called names, or banned him. I just set boundaries with my belongings since he disrespects them. Update: Gina texted me asking if we could talk. It's been 2 days since our fight, and she's usually either at work or at a friend's house until she's ready to come home and sleep. Let's see how this goes.
38 male seeking advice about cruel prank played by wife. So I'm a 38-year-old man. I have been married for around 4 years and been with my wife 33 for 8 years. We met through work friends and it's always been tough. She likes to think she's always right and usually likes to tell me so. When we first got together after only dating for 2 months, I didn't earn much money and I used to stay in her apartment when I was working as it was closer to work. Anyways, one weekend I feel ill and went to A&E because I was in a lot of pain. Turns out I had a huge infection in my jaw. They gave me strong painkillers and antibiotics which basically knocked me out for a few days. While in this state, my phone went off and although locked, she could see who it was from, and that was some girl I was seeing before her. Anyways, once I had come round a little, she asked me who it was from and I said no one important. She hung on to this and accused me of lying and things like That anyway she and I made an arrangement then to always be honest, and she has full access to my phone and I have it to hers since then. The issue I have is that recently she got a new phone for work, and unknown to me she decided to prank me saying it was a girl I had known from near 16 years ago. She only knows about this girl because I've been honest. Nothing went on between me and her. In fact, she was a mate's ex, so I wouldn't go there, but she pretended to be this old girl I knew saying hi sexy. Let's call her Alice. I immediately knew something was off and thought someone was playing silly buggers, so I shut it down, told them I didn't know anyone called that name, and blocked the chat. Anyways, I toyed with not telling the wife because I don't want any arguments, but I ended up saying to the wife that night what had happened, and she phrased it like, "Good boy, you passed the test," a look of happiness on her face. I, on the other hand, felt betrayed, annoyed, upset, and like I had been tricked again. This was about a month and a half ago now, and she claimed it was just a joke, a bit of fun, but I can't shake the feeling I can't forget, and I feel lied to, and tbh, I feel like I was the butt of her joke at best, and at worst I can't stop thinking that she was trying to set me up for a fall. Anyways, my question is, what should I do? Let it go and chalk it up as a joke, or confront her on it? I just don't know what to do. I would usually talk to my mom about this kind of stuff, but I can't. She's not well and dealing with her own stuff, so thought I'd ask everyone on here. Thanks to anyone that reads this, and hope this makes sense. Am I the asshole for not going on my best friend's bachelorette trip? I, 21F, and my best friend Christy, 23F, have been incredibly close for years. We worked together, spent a lot of time together, and shared so much of our personal lives that it felt like we were sisters. Christy was in a relationship with Brian, who was deployed in the military. Before he left, he proposed to her, and they planned to get married shortly after his return. When the time came, Christy asked me to be one of her bridesmaids, and I was thrilled to say yes. I had already been a bridesmaid in another best friend's wedding and was excited to support Christy in the same way. We both worked at the same job, but I was in a different position and paid less than she was. So, I was involved in wedding planning, but as things progressed, I asked Christy if I could opt out of the hair and makeup services because they were too expensive for me. She was totally understanding and said it was fine as long as I stuck to the theme. Leading up to the wedding, I kept hearing about the bachelorette trip, which was planned for a location 4 hours away. I had mentioned multiple times that I might not be able to afford it due to my financial situation, and I didn't want to hold the group back. Christy reassured me that it was okay as long as I could attend the wedding, which I had already blocked out on my calendar. She even said her mom had offered to pay for my trip, but I couldn't justify taking off more time from work and spending money I didn't have. I was already covering my share of wedding expenses, including gifts, the bridesmaid dress, and regular bills. The dates for the trip were announced, and it just so happened that they overlapped with my little sister's special birthday weekend. It was a milestone birthday for her, and I absolutely couldn't miss it. After giving it a lot of thought, I decided to tell Christy that I wouldn't be able to attend the trip. Just as I was preparing to tell her, I found out that the wedding was canceled by Brian for unknown reasons. I took time off work to be there for Christy because she was devastated and needed her people around her. Even though it hurt my finances, I helped with cancellations, returns, and everything else she needed. I even let her keep all the wedding gifts since she was moving into her own place. Christy thanked me for everything and especially for being there during such a difficult time. A few days later, I found out that the bachelorette trip was still on. I told Christy again that I couldn't afford to go and reminded her that it fell on my sister's birthday. She got very angry and accused me of lying about my financial situation and my sister's birthday. She called me the worst friend and said I hadn't supported her through the wedding cancellation. I was devastated because I had given so much of myself to help her during such a tough time, and now she was attacking me. Am I the asshole for not going on my best friend's bachelorette trip?
Am I the asshole for not reacting properly to my friend group's surprise Airbnb booking? Context. Every year, our friend group holds a Secret Santa event. A big part of the tradition involves booking an Airbnb where most of us, around 12 people, stay, though not everyone ends up sleeping there. We usually spend a few hours on Discord together searching for Airbnbs that meet our needs, considering things like location, capacity, and budget, and bookmark options for further review. This year, we followed the usual process as a group, spending hours looking through listings and saving potential options. Then 2 weeks ago, half of the group, let's call them Group B, suddenly went silent on Discord for an entire week, leaving the rest of us, Group A, confused and wondering why they'd stopped communicating. A few days later, the main planner from Group B, who typically leads our event coordination, announced that he'd booked a surprise Airbnb within budget and in a great area. Group A appreciated the effort but requested some basic details, wanting at least a general sense of the place. However, the planner refused, just saying, "Trust me," and informing us that we'd each need to contribute $60. As days went by, Group A became more uneasy about paying for an unknown Airbnb. Then a friend close to some members of Group B, let's call him Jay, shared that the planner had recently purchased a house that Group B would be moving into. We acknowledged that this was impressive, but were still confused as to why Group B insisted it was an Airbnb and why we were being asked to pay $60 each for it. Group A tried to get confirmation from Group B, but they continued to insist on keeping it a surprise until the last minute. According to Jay, part of the surprise was that we wouldn't actually need to pay anything as the planner owned the house. Last night, Group B finally revealed that they'd bought a new house and planned to use it as the location for our Secret Santa event. Group A was not thrilled about the secrecy and the expectation that we'd contribute to what we thought was an Airbnb rental, only to find out it was actually Group B's new home. Group B is upset with us, saying that we acted like babies for not being more supportive of their efforts, and for reacting in an annoyed manner. Am I the asshole for making them feel disappointed in us by reacting this way? Am I the asshole for telling my mom to ask my brother to help with writing the paper to transfer the inheritance from me to him? My parents initially gave me a piece of property, but later decided to transfer it to my brother instead. I told my mom that I have no problem with this decision. However, due to property laws in my country, this transfer process will be tedious. While I don't mind my brother having the property, I feel he should take responsibility for handling the inheritance transfer paperwork. My reasons are, 1. I work full-time and have kids to take care of, so my days are already packed, and 2. Since he is the beneficiary of this transfer, he should assume a larger share of the responsibility. What makes me feel slightly guilty for not helping my parents more with the paperwork is that my brother is only 18. He may be too young to handle this entirely on his own. But I do want him to at least research the process or draft some paperwork, as I don't want the responsibility to fall solely on me. Also, he's just finished all his entrance exams and has about 2 months before starting college, so he isn't currently occupied with anything major. Please let me know if I'm unreasonable for declining to take on this responsibility alone. Edit to add *. Thanks, everyone, for your comments and advice. It's now settled that my brother will do most of the work, and I'll provide him with guidance.
My husband just asked me to quit my hobby and say goodbye to my hobby friends. I really don't want to say yes to that. What should I do? A bit of background. I'm 31 years old, and my husband is 33. We've been together for almost 8 years, married for 5. For most of my adult life, I've struggled with severe depression, which has impacted my ability to work. I haven't worked full-time since 2015, and I've been unemployed since 2019. Despite trying various therapies and medications, I'm still mostly treatment-resistant, and this has significantly affected my self-esteem. I don't have any close friends or family anymore, and for the past 2 years, my husband has been my only source of support, love, and even companionship. He's a very private person, and he doesn't have many friends either. We live a comfortable life thanks to his hard work, and we take seasonal vacations and enjoy some luxuries. But day to day, I struggle with my depression, and some days I just can't get out of bed. I do chores around the house when I can, but I often crash and feel useless. My husband has tried to help me, but over time, his approach has become more authoritarian. He has a card system where I need to write down all the tasks I plan to do the next day, things like cooking, doing laundry, running, etc. He reviews my list and approves it, making sure there are at least 6 hours of activities planned. If I don't complete everything, he punishes me, taking away my phone, locking up my pet bunny, or making me run extra miles. I've resisted at first, but over time, I've learned that resisting just makes the punishments worse. His reasoning is that he's trying to help me get my life together and be more productive. He believes if I don't do the things I said I would, I'm making a choice to be lazy, and I deserve the consequences. I don't agree with his methods, but I've been too exhausted to argue. On top of this, he constantly criticizes how I spend my time. He says I consume too much garbage, basically, social media and entertainment, and that I should only focus on educational content. But I can't just push through that way. It's my way of coping, and it's one of the few things that helps me feel like I can manage my life. The hobby. This summer, I discovered a new interest: watching table tennis games. I watched a lot of matches, learned about the players, and even started a fan page for a player I like. Through this, I met some really kind people online, especially one girl who has become a close friend. I've had deep conversations with her about life, marriage, politics, and more. This online community has been a source of happiness for me in ways I haven't experienced in a long time. For the first time in years, I felt confident and likable. However, I've been keeping this all a secret from my husband. He doesn't approve of me watching sports or being a fangirl, and thinks it's a waste of time. He wants me to quit cold turkey. I didn't immediately agree, and now I'm stuck. Why I don't want to quit? Friendship. This person I've met online is the first close friend I've had in years. Most of my friends are Chinese, and my husband doesn't like that, especially because we live in America. He dislikes my Chinese connections and wants me to focus more on English-speaking content, but I feel isolated. This is the first time I've felt like I've made a real friend, and I'm terrified of losing her. Self-esteem. Online, I found a version of myself that I lost a long time ago. I'm sociable, creative, and fun to talk to. It's the happiest I've felt in years. I've worked hard to build this online persona and community, and now my husband is asking me to give it up. I don't want to lose that sense of self. It feels like every time I find something that makes me happy, my husband wants to take it away. He complains about me regressing intellectually and not growing as a person, and I know he's probably right. I've spent so much of my life feeling stagnant. But this hobby and these online friends have brought me a sense of joy I haven't had in a long time, and I don't want to give it up just because it doesn't fit into his vision of what my life should look like. What I'm struggling with, I feel completely lost. I've never supported myself financially, I don't have any savings, and I've cut off contact with my family. I only have my husband in my life, but it feels like I'm being controlled and punished for trying to find my own happiness, even in small ways. I don't know if I'm just being selfish, but this doesn't feel right. I know I've made mistakes in not growing intellectually or socially, but I also don't feel like my husband's approach is helping me. It feels more like control than support. I just turned 31, and I feel like I have nothing to show for it. I'm stuck and don't know what to do next. How do I, 24F, tell him, 24M, that I don't want to cook for him anymore? How do I politely tell him to feed himself? I, 24F, have been seeing this guy, 24M, for about 4 months now. We've gone on 10+ dates and are now at the point where we hang out at my place regularly. While I do enjoy spending time with him, I've fallen into the habit of always cooking for him when he visits. At first, I thought it would be a nice gesture, so I would make breakfast and lunch/dinner whenever he came over. But lately, I'm starting to feel like this was a mistake. It's as if he now expects me to cook for him every time we hang out. I'm a little torn because I know he drives an hour and a half to see me. I don't drive, so I feel bad saying no. But the reality is, it's starting to feel really exhausting. Honestly, I don't even cook for myself most days. I usually throw together something simple, like rice, beans, and protein, but he always asks for something more elaborate and I can't keep up with it. It's getting to the point where I dread him coming over because of the cooking. Most days, I'm drained from work, and all I want to do is relax, watch TV, or just have some downtime. When we get hungry, I would much prefer it to be a team effort, both of us deciding together what to eat or even ordering something, rather than me taking on the whole responsibility. I know this sounds a little unfair, but sometimes it feels like he's treating me like a wife or mother figure when he asks, "What's for dinner?" And I don't want that. I'm just his girlfriend, not his personal chef. On top of that, he's pretty picky with his food. He has specific preferences about what he likes and the temperature at which he wants things cooked. He doesn't complain outright, but I still feel stressed trying to meet those expectations. It just adds unnecessary pressure. For example, last week, when I invited him over, he asked me, "What are you thinking of cooking?" I didn't feel like making anything, so I told him I'd order something from DoorDash instead. But then, he sent me an entire menu of what he wanted for breakfast and lunch. He wanted me to make 3 separate meals. I honestly felt overwhelmed, so I told him I just didn't feel like cooking. Now, we're about to hang out again soon, and I'm already anticipating that he'll ask me to cook for him. I don't want to keep falling into this routine, but I don't know how to let him know politely that I can't be his personal chef. How do I tell him in a kind way that I am not his mother or wife, and he needs to take responsibility for feeding himself when he comes over? I want to be nice about it, but I'm just really not up for cooking for him all the time. How can I handle this without sounding like I'm complaining or being rude?
Am I the asshole for planning a Disney trip without my stepdaughter and leaving her with her father? I am a 41-year-old woman and my husband, also 41, and I have 4 children. I have 1 child from a previous relationship, he has 2, and we have 1 together. We have always tried to treat the children as equally as possible. However, when it comes to extended family trips, they don't always go on the same vacations if we're not the ones planning them. For example, his parents will take his children on trips, and my child doesn't usually want to go without me. This has never caused any issues, and when we plan trips, we always bring everyone along. The issue here is with my 16-year-old stepdaughter, who doesn't seem to enjoy anything that the rest of us do. Often, she'll be interested in an activity until someone else shows interest. For example, she wanted to go on a winter trip to Colorado for skiing. None of the other kids were that enthusiastic, but since it's rare to find activities she likes, we planned the trip. She was excited, until the other kids started enjoying it too. Then she wanted to leave. This pattern repeats itself on trips to the zoo, museums, or really any outing. If others show excitement, she instantly dislikes the idea. We thought she might just want individual time with each parent, so we tried that with both her mom and her dad. But she still complained the entire time. Her counselor suggested that she might want activities with both parents together, to show that they get along. They tried that, but if they seemed to enjoy themselves, she immediately disliked whatever they were doing. We've even tried girl days with her mom and me, but she hates those as well. We've found that the less enthusiastic everyone is, the more she wants to participate. This behavior extends to meals too. If someone else likes a dish, she criticizes it. It's as if she can't let anyone else enjoy anything. She also seems to enjoy things more if no one else wants to do them. Her aunt and cousins experience the same behavior when they invite her along. Her sister, however, is not like this at all. We've asked her sister if she has any insights, and their mother has too, but her response is usually, she's just AB******H, with a shrug. We have allowed her to choose day trips and even bring a friend, but it's the same issue. If someone likes the activity, she complains and says it was her idea, as if no one else should enjoy it. This year we'd been talking about going to Disney for a while. My nephew has cancer and has always wanted to go with us because he has no siblings and hasn't been able to make many friends due to missing a lot of school. My stepdaughter said Disney was a stupid idea as soon as everyone else showed excitement. My husband also mentioned he would have a lot of work to catch up on when we return since he does seasonal work and needs to take jobs while he can. The kids were enthusiastic about going and he wanted us to go as well, so I made the plans with the idea that we'd go back another year as a full family. I booked the trip for myself, my sister, my nephew, and 3 of our children, deciding my stepdaughter could stay back with her dad since she didn't want to go anyway. My husband says I am the asshole for not including her in the plans, but I don't want her potentially spoiling the trip with complaints, especially with my nephew being there. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for refusing to babysit when my parents asked because they wouldn't pay me? My parents have 4 kids, me, a 16-year-old male, and my younger siblings, 12-year-old sister, 10-year-old brother, and 7-year-old sister. My younger siblings each receive an allowance for doing their chores, which is 1 chore each, and for that they get $20 a week. Meanwhile, I don't receive an allowance for my chores and I have 5 chores assigned to me: making 4 beds every morning, keeping the kids' living room tidy, doing laundry twice a week, cooking for the family once a week, and cleaning my siblings' lunch boxes after school. I've always had multiple chores and this list has stayed the same for 5 years. Before that, the only difference was cooking, as I wasn't expected to cook 1 night a week. But laundry was added to my list when I was about 7 or 8 years old. My siblings' chores are much simpler. My youngest sister, 7, is responsible for carrying dishes to whoever is washing up. My brother, 10, starts the robotic vacuum, and my other sister, 12, makes sure there is always bottled water in the fridge. Asked my parents why my siblings get paid but I don't, especially since I do more than they do. They told me that it's my responsibility as the oldest and that they shouldn't have to pay me to be a good brother and son. They were also unhappy when I got a job because it meant that some of my chores were done at different times than before. I explained that I wanted money, and since they had decided I wasn't worth paying like my siblings were, I got a real job instead. To be clear, I still do my chores, but now the lunch boxes are cleaned after work on Friday instead of right after school, and the kids' living room stays messier for longer if I'm at work while my siblings are using it. Now, my parents want to go on an overnight date and have asked me to babysit. I asked what they would pay and they said nothing, that babysitting would just be another chore. I told them I wouldn't babysit unless they paid me. They argued that they can't afford to pay me, and I replied that I was tired of being treated unfairly while my younger siblings receive money for their chores. They said I was being a brat and insisted they could make me babysit. I reminded them that they get what they pay for. Am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for kicking my niece out of my apartment when she needed my help? My wife, 26F, and I, 27M, live a relatively quiet life. My sister has 2 kids, one of which is my niece, J, 15F. Growing up with my sister, I know very well that living with her isn't easy, and I sympathize with my niece, especially since she often gets into arguments with her mom. But Jay isn't exactly an angel either. Everyone in the family knows that. This year, Jay asked if she could stay with me in my apartment for the summer break, as she and her mom had gotten into a particularly nasty argument, and she wanted help and guidance. I hesitantly agreed and said she could stay for 2 months. Unfortunately, there were a lot of issues with Jay. First, she's a pathological liar. About 50% of what she says is untrue, and she'll lie straight to your face even when you know the truth. I have a cabinet full of alcohol that we save for family gatherings and date nights. We don't drink otherwise. I hid the alcohol from Jay, but she found it. Within 3 days, she drank everything. When I checked the hiding place, all the bottles were empty. I installed security cameras in the house because of her behavior and caught her on tape stealing money from my wallet. She also broke a few of our things out of anger, and when we asked her about it, she said it was an accident. It was on camera. I tried multiple times to spend time with her and connect with her, but she showed no respect or seriousness. Everything was a joke to her. The final straw came when I confronted her about the alcohol and money she stole. She not only didn't apologize, but lied and said that my wife did it and was framing her because she hates her. Even after I told her I had footage of her doing it, she still denied it, saying I was conspiring against her. I lost my temper. It had only been 5 weeks, but I was done. I called my sister and told her Jay would be coming back to her house the next morning. Jay begged me not to send her back. When I asked her why she couldn't stay with her aunt or father, she claimed neither would take her because they were conspiring against her too. Surprise, she had stolen from them and lied to them too, so no one wanted anything to do with her. I didn't care. I drove her back home to her mom and told my sister everything Jay had done. My sister was furious with Jay, so I left immediately. Now, I feel a little bad because Jay's mom is always angry, and her family doesn't want anything to do with her. It probably didn't help that I told my sister everything Jay had done, but at the same time, I feel these are the consequences of her actions. So, am I the asshole for kicking my niece out of my apartment?
Am I the asshole for laughing at my sister's relationship troubles? I'm a 28-year-old woman and I have a younger sister, Emily, who's 25. She was with her high school sweetheart, Jake, from the time she was 14. They dated all through high school and college, and honestly, they were the perfect couple. Jake was incredibly thoughtful. He would surprise her with gifts, plan elaborate dates, and he genuinely seemed to light up whenever she was around. They even talked about getting married. Fast forward to a few months ago, Emily cheated on Jake and ended the relationship to be with her affair partner, Mark. Since then, she's been complaining to me about how Mark doesn't do any of the romantic things Jake used to do. Apparently, Mark doesn't surprise her with gifts, and their dates feel pretty lackluster compared to the relationship she had with Jake. Last week, while I was on the phone with her, she started venting about how unsatisfied she feels in her new relationship. I don't know what came over me, but I just burst out laughing. I mean, she cheated on the guy who treated her like a queen, and now she's complaining that the new guy isn't measuring up? It just felt so absurd to me. Emily got really upset and told me I was being insensitive. I tried to explain that I wasn't laughing at her pain, but that it felt like poetic justice considering how she treated Jake. Now she's barely speaking to me and I'm starting to feel guilty. Am I the asshole for laughing at my sister's relationship troubles after she cheated on someone who treated her so well?
Hello, Reddit. I'm in a bit of a dilemma with my girlfriend, Sarah. and I'm hoping to get some advice. We've been together for about 18 months now, and things were great in the beginning, but recently I'm not so sure where we're headed. To give some context, Sarah and I met at the start of our freshman year at university. It was a time for new experiences and meeting new people, and we hit it off pretty quickly. She's a great person, beautiful, kind, and caring. I love her a lot, and I've been happy in our relationship for the most part. However, there's one major issue that's causing tension between us: our priorities. While I'm very focused on my academics, Sarah has always been more interested in the social side of college. I've maintained a high GPA and have been really committed to my studies. I've never missed a class, and I work hard for my grades. On the other hand, Sarah tends to go out a lot, partying or drinking with friends, and since turning 21, it seems to have gotten worse. She has a habit of staying out late, sleeping in, and sometimes skipping class altogether. I don't want to hover or nag, so I've tried to be supportive. I'll wake her up, but if she says she's got it, I let her handle it. But over time, I've noticed her grades have been slipping. She was placed on academic probation after the spring semester and was told she needs to raise her GPA by the end of this current semester or she'll be expelled. At the start of the semester, Sarah seemed to be putting in more effort, going to class, doing assignments, and I tried to help where I could. But as the semester went on, her old habits returned, and now her grades are once again suffering. Before the fall break, she was starting to panic, constantly texting me for help with assignments. I tried my best to help, but there's only so much I can do, and her performance wasn't improving. Right before we went on break, I sat down with her and gently told her that she might need to start considering what she'd do if she gets kicked out of school. That was a hard conversation, and she got really upset. She cried, and while I was trying to comfort her, she started asking me what would happen to our relationship if she gets expelled. I reassured her at that moment, telling her I didn't plan on breaking up. But now, during the break, she's been texting me a lot about possible plans. Getting a job in the same city as the university, possibly living in an off-campus apartment together. She keeps asking me to promise that we'll stay together, no matter what happens with her academic situation. The truth is, while I do love her, I'm starting to feel unsure about the future of our relationship. I'm frustrated because I feel like I've done everything I could to help her succeed, but she didn't seem to put in the same effort. She didn't face any major personal setbacks. She just partied and didn't prioritize school. Now, she seems to expect me to adjust to her life being in turmoil, and it's starting to feel like a burden. Part of me feels guilty for even thinking this way, but I'm also feeling like I'm progressing in my own life while she's stuck. I want to be with someone who's moving forward in a similar way, and I'm not sure I'm willing to commit to someone who isn't currently focused on their own growth. Has anyone been through something similar? Were you able to navigate it? Are Sarah and I doomed? Or is there a way for us to work through this?
Am I the asshole for telling my friend we don't want his wife to join us? I just scored some awesome concert tickets. A friend of mine, both of us are male, and I have been going to a few concerts a year for a while now. We don't go to sporting events, and concerts are kind of our thing for entertainment. I bought 3 tickets today. It's a big deal for us as we love this type of show, and I managed to get us great seats. The 3rd ticket is intended for another friend. Friend number 3 has had a really tough year taking care of his wife and kids. His wife was diagnosed with a rare disease, likely more from her major drinking problem than genetics. It's still somewhat of a mystery how and why, but she was really struggling all year, hardly able to help with the kids and no contribution to bills or chores. She's doing a lot better now but still has no job and doesn't contribute much. Everyone feels bad for him because he's a genuinely good guy and tries incredibly hard. So, I got him a ticket and invited him along thinking he could use a break to get away from the responsibilities and enjoy the show. He was super excited and agreed to join. Later today he tells me he got permission from his wife to go, but she also wants to join us. Besides her health issues, she's quite loud and not exactly easygoing. Plus, I only have 3 tickets. Am I the asshole for telling him it's a guy's night and potentially putting him in the difficult position of explaining to her that we don't want her to come? Am I the asshole for sending my friend a get well soon package? One of my 36-year-old male, close friends posted on Facebook that she, 40-year-old female, had caught a bad cold and had been stuck in her apartment for days. Feeling bad for her, I went to the store and bought a few items to send her as a care package. orange juice, cough drops, lemon ginger tea bags, and a DVD set of one of her favorite shows. She messaged me to say thank you and mentioned that my care package really cheered her up. However, that good feeling quickly turned sour when her boyfriend called me up, accusing me of trying to upstage him. I explained that I was just trying to be nice, but he started making wild accusations and even suggested that I was trying to get into her pants. I apologized for making him feel that way, emphasizing that my intentions were purely out of friendship. I've known my friend for years and have never tried anything with her. Plus, I'm married. Getting into my friend's pants was the absolute last thing on my mind. Am I the asshole for making her boyfriend feel uncomfortable by sending her a care package? Am I the asshole for yelling at my mom after my brother ran away? My family is pretty religious and conservative. I have my own opinions, but I usually keep quiet and just avoid my family as much as I can. My brother, 20, still lives at home and he's always been more out there. He's very open-minded and artistic, which has often clashed with our parents and sisters. He was a really good volleyball player in high school but quit his senior year just to spite our parents, so you can probably imagine the kind of guy he is. But he's the only boy, so our parents let it go. Recently, he acted in a silly amateur film for one of his friends in which he kisses a boy. I don't care about it, but the film wasn't a secret, and someone we know came across it and sent it to our parents, who kicked him out. My younger sister and her husband offered to take him in, but my brother left less than a week later because our brother-in-law was being a jerk about the film. Now no one knows where he is and everyone is pissed. Often angry. I only know he's alive because he's texted me a few times. My mom calls the family over almost every day to play the blame game, and yesterday it was my turn. She basically said that, as the oldest, I didn't do my job and led him astray because I failed as a sister or some crap. I got so angry I told her to shut the hell up and that this is more her fault than mine. It's a big deal in our family to disrespect her like that, so everyone was upset with me for yelling at mom and breaking her heart, even more after what my brother did. I told them to stop acting like victims and that they'd better pray he decides to see any of us again. Then I left. I feel better, but now the entire family is angry at me, especially since my brother isn't around to take their anger. I wish I could run away too, but I have responsibilities tying me here. Now, I'm wondering if I'm the asshole and if I should apologize. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for telling my house guests they need to leave over mental health issues? I, 31F, had a friend, 32F, from university reach out to me, asking if she and her sister, 25F, could stay at my place during their trip to the country where I now live, before they headed to other cities. I didn't have any issues with this arrangement, so I agreed. They flew over and were expected to stay at my place for a week. I live in the heart of a major tourist city. What I didn't know beforehand was that her sister has serious anxiety issues related to dogs. Neither my friend nor her sister seemed aware of the different regulations around dogs in this country. Here, malls, restaurants, bakeries, bars, and pubs are almost always dog-friendly, welcoming pets everywhere except for grocery stores. On their first day here, I took them out for a walk, and her sister became visibly upset when she saw dogs walking freely around the city with their owners, off and off-leash. She started getting really hysterical when we went inside a Starbucks, and she saw dogs inside, sitting by their owners' feet. We immediately returned home and I explained that it's impossible to avoid dogs in this city since they're commonly out and about. Her sister then told me she didn't want to leave my place at all because of these unpredictable dogs and preferred to stay indoors for the entire trip. I suggested that the places they're planning to visit next would likely have similar regulations and dog-friendly environments. At this point, her sister announced that they'd just stay at my place for a few more weeks before flying home, as she didn't feel comfortable going out. I told them I wasn't okay with this and that if her anxiety around dogs was truly that severe, they'd need to make other arrangements. Am I the asshole for asking them to leave after this unexpected change in circumstances?
Am I the asshole for screaming at my parents because of my brother's lateness that keeps ruining things for me? I, 16F, feel like I've hit my limit with my older brother, 17M. Over the past 2 weeks, I've had mock exams at 8:40 a.m. When my dad is home, he drives us instead of us taking the bus. You'd think this would make things easier, but my brother ruins it every single time. I told him to be ready by 8:05, but he was late every single time, usually by 10 minutes or more. He'd blame my mom for his late breakfast or say he couldn't find his clothes. When I pointed it out, he'd tell me to just take the bus instead of owning up to it. But when my dad is home, I'd rather not waste money on the bus or stress about whether it's on time. During his exams, I was ready early every morning and sat at school 40 minutes early just to help him. But now that it's my turn, he doesn't care. He told me to wake him earlier if I want him ready. But why should I? I can get ready in 20 minutes. He takes over an hour and still blames everyone else. He never faces consequences. My school starts earlier, and my teachers are strict because I was often late last year. If I'm late now, I'm humiliated in front of my class and given a 30-minute detention. Meanwhile, his school doesn't punish lateness much, so he doesn't care. It's not just about school. We had doctor's appointments booked 10 minutes apart. I let him take the earlier one since he wanted to get to school faster. He had 2 hours to get ready but still made us late because he was brushing his teeth at the last second. If we missed the check-in, we would have had to wait hours. But he didn't care and said, "I'll just take your appointment." Once again, his lateness would have had me take on the consequences. This happens all the time and I'm exhausted. Between exam stress and constantly cleaning up his messes, I finally snapped. I screamed at him and my parents, calling them all incompetent. My parents allow his behavior and treat a 17-year-old like a baby. My mom makes him 3 dishes for breakfast, packs him lunch even though he already eats at school, and cooks 2 dinners for him, one before and one after his gym session. He demands that every meal he has be packed with protein. If his football clothes aren't ready, he yells at her. He does nothing for himself because he knows my parents will pick up the slack. He spends hundreds of pounds every Christmas and birthday but won't lift a finger for anyone else. Whenever I try to talk about it, my parents tell me to let it go, because talking about it won't change anything. I'm sick of being punished for his selfishness and being treated like my frustration doesn't matter. All I've done is try to stay organized, but all the consequences land on me while they don't affect him at all. So, am I the asshole for screaming at them after everything I've been through? My 30F girlfriend has thrown in the towel when it comes to working and I'm 30M, unsure what to do next. Together 6 years, not married, 1 kid. We are also expecting our next child due in May 2025. As it currently stands, I am the only one working for the past 5 months and our financials have not dipped at all until now. We upgraded the car from an 08 to a 2024 in July, which made our payments go up significantly. It was my decision to get it, but she continuously kept saying how unsafe the car, 08, was and how could I disagree when a child's life could be on the line. My credit is not horrible, it's over 700. My car has always been the main vehicle since the other is easy to steal, Kia, in our area. Payments are still being made on the 2019 Kia despite it not being driven as much, which puts it all on me. I've done all sorts of ideas to have more income. Selling all my high-ticketed materials and electronics, Craigslist gigs, 40 hours a week, options trading, intermediate not a pro, drone piloting, lawn work. You would think, after doing so many things while being a parent, that you would have more money for them. I've consulted with her uncle for a loan since he's a businessman that I intend to pay back. I've expressed to him what's going on with the bills and her career standing. Why not ask my family? Because some people will tell you to work harder even though you put the 40 hours a week in plus gigs. So he agreed to help us out. Says that he understands. I really hope he does because he mentioned his wife quit work and never wanted to return, and sadly I see my woman going down the same path. Her drive to work has dimmed due to these online tests, which are the same questions pertaining to her old job. The old career she had for 10 years was perfect, but once her boss quit, the firing began from higher ups and she was next. Workload was based on Excel doing God knows what. Is it possible a good reference was thrown away by quitting voluntarily? To be fair, after quitting there has been a glow in her I haven't seen in a while and I'm loving it. It was a stressful place. She is still searching for a new online career, taking tests but giving up halfway through given her career's upgraded requirements. A different business will not hire you if you do not up your skills. Given this fact, she just gives up and goes to smoke instead, like that fixes anything. As for me, I drive the new car to work every day. Made Employee of the Month in less than 2 months of being there due to my hustle nature. The boss of where I work wants to make me manager in a sense, which could help us out even more. However, I have to wait till 2025 with no guarantee the 40 hours will be consistent as I'm currently full-time now. Reason being, I would have to wait for a current manager in the system to retire so I can fill in. Strange system, but I said okay, I'll consider. Just 2 weeks ago, I got an offer from a boss woman who wants me to be her database/marketing specialist. I have a degree in graphic design, so I'm not exactly sure what that entails yet. My coding skills are supreme in C. Blender is manageable and Adobe products are easy to me but time limited due to parenting. By the way, this boss woman is traveling the US, so there's no telling when I'll get a call to come work for her. Let's get back to the physical. I do the 40 hours and come home like clockwork unless there's a quick gig out there. My nose bleeds from time to time trying to keep up with everywhere I have to be, but I'm not sure if that's medical or mental as I am very healthy in what I eat and exercise. Karate 6 a.m. every day OSU. So I'm leaning towards overthinking. You tell me. After tax season 2025, I plan on getting serious with investing and keeping her half of the CTC so we can be financially free. I filed when our child was born because I knew eventually her job would do something shady and I make more funds. Honestly, I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck. The knowledge I've gained and share with both sides of the family will set us free. Yet everyone is stuck in this loop of not supporting us. Her side of the family has money but will not give her any assistance when it's clear she needs it. However, when it's a holiday, it's a requirement that she and I pick a materialistic gift. I really don't get it cause none of the gifts are cheap, which I've been selling. What more could I do? Any advice on my ideas and actions will help.
Am I the asshole for not inviting my best friend's boyfriend to my 6 years clear of cancer celebration? I'm a 19-year-old guy and when I was 12 I went through cancer. During that tough time, my best friend, also 19, was incredibly supportive. She was always by my side, messaging me during my chemotherapy treatments and making sure I was okay. When I returned to school after treatment, I joined a drama club. Unfortunately, there was one guy in the club who was incredibly homophobic towards me. I'd recently come out to my closest friends and word got around, which I was okay with. But this guy used it as an excuse to bully me. He said awful things, telling me I should leave the school because no one would want to talk to me, and even made hurtful comments about my cancer, saying things like, "It should have taken your life, and it's a shame you beat it." Fast forward to now, I'm celebrating 6 years of being cancer-free. We have a celebratory meal each year, and it's usually just me, my family, my boyfriend, 22, whom I've been with for almost 2 years, and my closest friends. My best friend started dating someone 5 months ago, and it turned out to be the same guy who bullied me in high school. She seemed really happy with him and insisted he had changed, so I decided to give him another chance. Although he and I still don't get along, I haven't interfered in their relationship because I want her to be happy. A few days ago, she asked if he could join the celebration meal. I was hesitant and explained that, while I'm happy for her, I can't forgive him for the awful things he said to me. Just a month ago, he made some snide remarks about me and my boyfriend to a mutual friend, so I don't feel like he's changed. Now, my friend is calling me childish and insists I should just forget about it. She even said that if he can't come, she won't attend either. I'm torn. I don't know if I should let him join to keep the peace or stand by my decision and face the possibility of her not coming. So, am I the asshole for not inviting him and denying my friend's request?
Am I the asshole for not allowing my husband's friend to bring her dog to Thanksgiving dinner? I, 30F, have always enjoyed hosting Thanksgiving. But this year, my husband, 32M, really wanted to host, so we decided to give it a shot. We don't usually host because our apartment is small, and there's no guest parking, but my husband was excited about the idea since we used to host gatherings at our old place. Most of our guests are friends, and everyone agreed to bring a dish. One of my husband's friends, Chelsea, volunteered to make the turkey. Everything was going smoothly until one of my husband's other friends asked if she could bring her cat. I immediately said no pets, simply because our apartment is small, and it's a dinner gathering. I didn't think it would be comfortable for anyone, including the pets. My husband agreed, and suggested that we also inform Chelsea about our no-pet rule. I was a little hesitant, though, because Chelsea is one of those people who likes to bring her dog everywhere, even to places that aren't pet-friendly. In the past, when her dog wasn't allowed at other events, it caused some tension, so I was concerned about how she would react. I told my husband to text Chelsea and ask if she was planning on bringing her dog. I also offered to talk to her myself, since my husband isn't as comfortable with confrontations. He texted her and then she called us. He put her on speaker, and I could tell from the tone of her voice that she was upset. Chelsea said she always brings her dog everywhere, and I pointed out that wasn't entirely true since we've been to several events where she didn't bring the dog, which is a fact. She then asked why we hadn't mentioned the no pet rule before the invitation. I explained that I assumed it was understood that bringing pets to a dinner without asking isn't typical, especially since we don't even have pets ourselves. At this point, she became upset and said, "Well, I guess you'll have Thanksgiving without a turkey then." I was taken aback because it felt like she was trying to pressure me into letting her bring the dog. She implied that she wouldn't come if the dog wasn't allowed. I don't like being pressured, especially in my own home, so I calmly responded that I was sorry she felt that way. She then interrupted me and said, "No, I feel sorry for you, since you won't have a turkey," and hung up. I'm now feeling a bit conflicted. I feel like I set a reasonable boundary by saying no pets, but I'm second-guessing myself after how the conversation went. Was I in the wrong for saying no to her bringing her dog, or was she out of line for trying to pressure me? Am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for telling a wheelchair-bound lady her service dog shouldn't be at the playground? Throwaway account here because I can't believe this situation actually happened, and now people are making me feel like I'm the one in the wrong. Last Friday, my wife and I took our 2 kids, both under 3, to our neighborhood park's playground. It was one of those rare Fridays where we had no commitments, so we decided to take them in the afternoon instead of our usual morning visits. When we arrived, we saw about a dozen kids playing and noticed 2 large Labrador retrievers running around in the grassy area near the playground, off-leash. My wife and I both thought the dogs shouldn't be unleashed there, but our son was excited to play, so we just continued on. Once we got to the playground, our son ran around and we put our younger child in a swing. While he was climbing on a playground structure, some parents there started talking to us. It turns out they're part of a neighborhood parent group that meets up weekly, which we hadn't known about. After our son went down the slide, he moved on, and the playground structure was momentarily empty. At that point, the lady with the 2 dogs, who I still don't know if she's a parent or not, let her dogs climb onto the playground structure and even go down the slide. I told her she should keep her dogs off the playground equipment. She replied that they were her service dogs. I said I didn't think service dogs were meant to play on playground equipment. She snapped back, saying that service dogs are allowed to take breaks, and that she's there every week and no one has ever complained. I replied that not everyone is comfortable around dogs, and I thought it was selfish to let her dogs use the playground equipment, especially with young children around. Some parents supported her and even told my wife and me as much. She told me I should make sure my kids are comfortable around dogs if we're going to bring them to places where dogs might be. I told her she was missing the point and acting inconsiderately. At that point, my wife and I decided to leave. Later, we saw a Facebook post about the incident, which we haven't responded to, and it seems the reactions are split about 50-50 on who's in the wrong here.
Am I the asshole for screaming at my parents because of my brother's lateness that keeps ruining things for me? I, 16F, feel like I've hit my limit with my older brother, 17M. Over the past 2 weeks, I've had mock exams at 8:40 a.m. When my dad is home, he drives us instead of us taking the bus. You'd think this would make things easier, but my brother ruins it every single time. I told him to be ready by 8:05, but he was late every single time, usually by 10 minutes or more. He'd blame my mom for his late breakfast or say he couldn't find his clothes. When I pointed it out, he'd tell me to just take the bus instead of owning up to it. But when my dad is home, I'd rather not waste money on the bus or stress about whether it's on time. During his exams, I was ready early every morning and sat at school 40 minutes early just to help him. But now that it's my turn, he doesn't care. He told me to wake him earlier if I want him ready. But why should I? I can get ready in 20 minutes. He takes over an hour and still blames everyone else. He never faces consequences. My school starts earlier, and my teachers are strict because I was often late last year. If I'm late now, I'm humiliated in front of my class and given a 30-minute detention. Meanwhile, his school doesn't punish lateness much, so he doesn't care. It's not just about school. We had doctor's appointments booked 10 minutes apart. I let him take the earlier one since he wanted to get to school faster. He had 2 hours to get ready but still made us late because he was brushing his teeth at the last second. If we missed the check-in, we would have had to wait hours. But he didn't care and said, "I'll just take your appointment." Once again, his lateness would have had me take on the consequences. This happens all the time and I'm exhausted. Between exam stress and constantly cleaning up his messes, I finally snapped. I screamed at him and my parents, calling them all incompetent. My parents allow his behavior and treat a 17-year-old like a baby. My mom makes him 3 dishes for breakfast, packs him lunch even though he already eats at school, and cooks 2 dinners for him, one before and one after his gym session. He demands that every meal he has be packed with protein. If his football clothes aren't ready, he yells at her. He does nothing for himself because he knows my parents will pick up the slack. He spends hundreds of pounds every Christmas and birthday but won't lift a finger for anyone else. Whenever I try to talk about it, my parents tell me to let it go, because talking about it won't change anything. I'm sick of being punished for his selfishness and being treated like my frustration doesn't matter. All I've done is try to stay organized, but all the consequences land on me while they don't affect him at all. So, am I the asshole for screaming at them after everything I've been through? Am I the asshole for kicking my niece out of my apartment when she needed my help? My wife, 26F, and I, 27M, live a relatively quiet life. My sister has 2 kids, one of which is my niece, J, 15F. As her younger brother, I know very well that living with my sister isn't easy, so I sympathized with my niece, especially since she often gets into arguments with her mom. Jay isn't perfect, though everyone in the family knows that. This year, Jay personally asked if she could stay with me in my apartment for the summer break. She and her mom had gotten into a particularly nasty argument, and Jay wanted help and guidance. I hesitantly agreed, telling her she could stay for 2 months. Unfortunately, there were a lot of issues with Jay. First, she's a pathological liar. About 50% of what she says is untrue, and she'll lie even when you know the truth. I also have a cabinet full of alcohol that we keep for family gatherings and date nights. We don't drink otherwise. I hid the alcohol from Jay, but within 3 days, she found it and drank everything. When I checked the hiding place, all the bottles were empty. I installed security cameras in the house because of some of her behavior and caught her on tape stealing money from my wallet. She also broke a few of our things out of anger, and when we asked her about it, she claimed it was an accident. Again, it was all caught on camera. I tried multiple times to spend time with her and connect, but she didn't show me any respect or seriousness. Everything was a joke to her. The final straw came when I confronted her about the alcohol and the stolen money. Instead of apologizing, she lied again, saying that my wife did all those things and was framing her because she hates her. Even after I showed her the footage, she continued to deny it, claiming that I was conspiring against her. I lost my temper. Even though it had only been 5 weeks, I was done. I called my sister and told her Jay would be coming back to her house the next morning. Jay begged me not to send her back, but when I asked her why she couldn't stay with her aunt or her father, she claimed neither would let her stay because they were also conspiring against her. Turns out, she had stolen from them and lied to them too, so no one wanted anything to do with her. I didn't care. I drove her back home to her mom and told my sister everything Jay had done. My sister was furious with Jay, so I left immediately. Now, I feel a little bad because Jay's mom is always angry, and her family seems to want nothing to do with her. Probably didn't help that I told my sister everything Jay had done. But still, I feel like these are the consequences of her actions. So, am I the asshole for kicking my niece out of my apartment?